The story begins with the fact that one day everything changed when monsters poured into our world from mysterious gates. At the same time, some people have surpassed human capabilities with supernatural powers. They became known as hunters, as they risked their lives to fight back against the monsters. The crowd began to worry, for the gates of the dungeon, which was rumored to be a test even for the best, had not yet closed. Suddenly, a man pointed to someone coming out of the gate, and there he was. The first to come out was his sword. Everyone began to cheer as they saw the dungeon closing. The hunter confirmed that he had successfully conquered the dungeon. This was the legendary hunter Kwok Pil Sun, who had closed countless gates despite being over 60 years old. But one day this powerful hunter suddenly disappeared without leaving a trace. Only tales of his valor. 10 years after his disappearance, the old man claimed to be the legendary hunter, but seeing that the young man didn't believe him, he was particularly annoyed. The nurse turned around and complained to his colleague, saying that this old man thought he was Kwok Pil's son. But that's nonsense. A legendary hunter can't be stuck in this nursing home, but his friends suggested that he could be the legendary hunter. The names and ages are the same. As a result, they both speculated that this old man must have been a stand-up comedian in his youth. They then got into a conversation about how they wouldn't have taken the job if they were hunters, and that they should have a drink later. It was at this point that one of them noticed an exhausted man. The medic immediately rushed to check his condition, but was frozen in confusion when a giant ant suddenly appeared in the room. As the creature grabbed the man by the neck, he began to beg for rescue, but the giant insect just chopped off his head. The nurse was horrified as he watched this atrocity and nightmare. The ant then decided to kill another man. But at the same moment, the armed man jumped into the air and plunged his blade into the vile creature's head, leaving the man in complete shock. He was even more surprised when his savior turned out to be Kwok Pil Sung, who asked him to run faster. The hunter asked the nurse to evacuate everyone as there were many ants, which made the nurse worried about his grandfather's safety as he was going to fight the monsters alone. Kwok Pil Sung calmed him down by saying that he wouldn't do anything beyond his capabilities. After that, the mocking nurse was convinced it was the real Kwok Pil Sung and wondered why he was in the nursing home. As the sun began to set, giant insects continued to appear from the portal. Kwok Pil Sung watched silently, puzzled. How the responsible association missed the appearance of these gates. But suddenly one of the monsters noticed him and let out a loud cry to warn the others. Being discovered, the old man decided to act, shake his bones, so to speak. And so Kwok Pil Sun lunged at the ants from above, landing and stabbing the first one in the head. Then he noticed another one trying to bite him from behind, and quickly dodged the jaws of death. This enraged Kwok Pil Sung, and our hero took out 4 ants with one swipe of his kitchen knife, leaving behind a huge plume of awesomeness and aura. Kwok Pil Sung stood alone amongst the corpses of the giant creatures. After realizing how exhausted he was after killing just a few ants, the man realized that he was really getting old and wished he was younger. But the old man noticed something stirred. A giant praying mantis appeared right behind his back. Then the frightened hunter asked the insect if it was the boss of the bug gang. But the mindless creature didn't answer, but attacked the old man with all its might and slammed him into a huge rock. It was apparently a strong opponent. Seeing that Kwok Pil Sung couldn't move, the praying mantis prepared to sink its claws and fangs right into his head. But just as he was about to take the first bite, the old man opened his eyes and said that the monster's mouth was disgusting. With these words, the hero pierced the mantis' head. Squirming in pain, the insect tried to shake Kwok Pil Sung off its head, knocking it into the nearby trees. Yes, it was a bit of a pain, and when it stopped moving, the hero assumed it couldn't fight anymore. That's when Kwok Pil Sung mustered the last of his strength to finish it off with one final powerful blow. Just like that, the giant praying mantis was defeated and finally collapsed on the ground behind the old man. The hunter was glad to see that his skills weren't completely dulled. Then he started coughing. The exhausted old man then collapsed to the ground. Kwok Pil Sung realized that his body couldn't take it anymore. He had reached his limit. Reflecting on how easy it would have been to deal with these creatures 10 years ago, the hero found it amusing that he would die in agony like a true hunter. But at that moment, he was caught off guard by a notification congratulating him on conquering this dungeon. And he was intrigued when the system stated that it would grant his wish for the sweep. Kwok Pil Sung had received a divine blessing, granting him eternal life. Immediately his eyes closed, and his body began to glow, and gradually changed. As the gate began to close, a crowd of people rushed to his aid. Later, the old man woke up to a lady calling for him. A confused Kwok Pil Sun asked where he was. The nurse explained that he was transferred to this capital hospital after being found almost dead in front of the closing gate. When asked to introduce himself, the old man gave his name and year of birth. The year of birth shocked the lady. This infuriated the protagonist. Is she deaf? Why ask so many times? He scratched his ear and said that yes, he was old. He was 83 years old. Hearing this, the nurse couldn't believe that this young-looking guy was actually an old man, which he, again irritably, confirmed. Kwok Pil Sun assumed that her reaction was because he looked 60 years old and she had fallen for him, but that was when he noticed. Kwok Pil Sung saw his own reflection and then rushed to the mirror in shock at his new appearance. This strange behavior led the nurse to assume that the patient's injuries had caused brain damage, so she went after the doctor while he was still in shock. At that moment, Kwok Pil Sung remembered what had happened before he lost consciousness and realized that it wasn't a hallucination. The old man remembered how some people gain new skills after clearing the dungeon, but he had never heard of blessings. What was even stranger was that this blessing gave him back his lost youth. After pondering for a while, Kwok Pil Sung decided he should seek help, not stay in the hospital. And when the nurse returned, the young man was gone. Now Kwok Pil Sung was standing in the street, right in front of a tall skyscraper. He remembered that he hadn't set foot in the association building for 10 years, maybe more. As he entered the building, the legendary hunter noticed that the place had completely changed. Kwok Pil Sun then asked someone for help as he needed to settle something with the association. The stranger pointed him to a strange kiosk and confirmed that he would have to take a ticket to wait his turn. But the 83-year-old man struggled to operate such a device, much to the displeasure of those scowling behind him. At that moment, a hand lay on his shoulder. The tall man threateningly asked the hero to give up his turn, as he had no time to waste. Some of the hunters present recognized him as a C-rank troublemaker from Medusic. To everyone's surprise, the young-looking fellow began to tell the man off, stating that he should stand in line like everyone else. The annoyed man then grabbed the protagonist by the shirt, when suddenly they were interrupted by the tall, imposing presence of a man in a white jacket. He reminded them that fighting within the association was forbidden. The boys let go of each other. Some people were astonished to recognize him as an S-rank hunter named Park Shi-hyun, while others were surprised to see an S-rank hunter for the first time. The tall man was annoyed by the association, seeing her using someone of his rank to maintain order. The crowd then began to whisper about his impressive height as he berated the aggressor. People talked about how he seemed to be the crowning glory of masculinity, and even though he didn't want to be flattered, he liked being called manly. At this moment, Kwok Pil Sun stated that the S-rank hunter didn't seem familiar to him. The handsome man stood there wondering who the juvenile jerk was. Kwok Pil Sung then said that it was Park Shi-hyun in front of him, leaving the man in shock. Being called by that name shocked the frightened hunter. The hunters present started gossiping about S-Rang being called Park Shi-hyun. Then Kwok Pil Sung started talking about how they hadn't seen each other for a long time and how old he looked now. Hunter S-Rang started shaking with anger after hearing the crowd gossiping about that name. In fact, after becoming an S-rank hunter 10 years ago, Dabin decided to take a more serious name, becoming Park Shi-hyun. He was annoyed that this young man called him by his real name. Just as he was about to ask his acquaintance for a favor, he was suddenly grabbed by Park Dabin's collar, ordering him to introduce himself first. Who is he? How does he know his name? But instead of complying, Kwok Pil Sun pointed out how the hunter had lost his delicacy, before reminding him that they couldn't fight inside the building in front of a huge crowd. Apologizing for his sudden outburst, Pak Dabin suggested we move to a more suitable place, warning our hero not to even think of escaping while his eyes filled with rage, frightening the protagonist very much. Entering a huge empty space, Kwok Pil Sung asked what this place was all about. The S-rank hunter explained that it was a training ground for hunters, then asked our hero to introduce himself and reveal how he knew his real name. The fellow then introduced himself as a legendary hunter, stating that the recent incident had made him regain his youth. However, the tall one was not convinced and assumed that the young man was bullying him, whereupon he claimed to have given him a chance and concentrated mana in his fist to strike. Park Dabin decided to find out the truth by beating it out of the protagonist, but Kwok Pil Sung dodged the blow and called him crazy for his age. This swiftness left the S-rank hunter in complete shock. The old man explained to the young man that as you get older, you have to get rid of your temper. Park Dabin then said that the mere sight of his opponent made him even more eager to know his real name. So he decided to get serious. With those words, the S-rank hunter turned himself into a monster, activating the beast skill, which turned him into a werewolf. The monster declared that he wouldn't hold back any longer and then lunged at our hero, causing him to dodge his attacks once more. Kwok Sung had no choice but to block the impending blow, leaving him shocked by this new power. He then suddenly became wary when the werewolf said that his next attack would be painful. Pak Da Bin then sliced through the air with his claws, striking our hero in several places, sending him flying through the air at high speed, and then slammed him into the wall. The entire room was filled with the dust of the broken wall. Seeing this, the satisfied S-rank hunter realized that he may have gotten carried away. But to his surprise, our smiling hero declared that this conflict could no longer end peacefully. And so, with his foot firmly planted on the ground, the legendary hunter lunged at the monster, who couldn't believe that his S-rank strength couldn't even scratch a young-looking guy. Kwok Sung then claimed that his punch could be a bit stinging, and then punched the hunter in the jaw, throwing him into the air before he finally fell. After a while, the werewolf was still not moving. This made our protagonist worried, suggesting that he might have accidentally killed him. As a 20-year-old, young Patabin thought that hunters were just super strong barbarians, devoid of beauty. When he remembered our old protagonist, checking his condition, sitting on a mountain of giant dead monsters, it struck Dobbin. After all, meeting him made the young man realize something. He remembered this pure and strong power. Back then, the old man had told him that the lad should study and exercise more. Finally, the lad woke up. In front of him was a familiar old man asking how he was doing. He immediately jumped up when he saw the teacher. But in front of him was the same kid who was happy to see him awake. Kwok Sung then began to reprimand the defeated hunter for attacking him like that, claiming that he had taught him the best. After this, Park Da-bin finally realized that the legendary hunter in front of him was indeed a legendary hunter who was annoyed. Soon after, our hero successfully finished recounting the incident and talked about the blessing. According to Dobbin, blessings were abilities that, unlike skills, were activated unnecessarily. Kwok Sung, who was unfamiliar with blessings, noted that Tybin didn't seem to have a deep knowledge of them either. This made the tall hunter apologize for not being able to help the old man. Kwok Sung had to ask Pa Dobbin to put on a shirt, watching the man admire his own body and claim that he had lost his clothes from the skillet. The old man realized that it was not the time to think about his situation, as this world full of gates had become truly strange, and the only thing that mattered was his youth. Out of joy, the S-rank suggested that Kwok Sung return to the association, as many would be thrilled to have him back. But when the old man called out to him, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Park Da-bin was surprised to hear that Kwok Sung wanted to keep his return a secret. Before asking the naked man if he knew the reason for his sudden retirement, Srank was shocked when the master asked if he remembered the names of Taeyeon, Byamsik, and Jiyoung. With a saddened expression on his face, the tall one confirmed that he would remember them forever. Kwok Sung recalled how they had honored him by allowing him to return to the S-rank, to allow him to survive the many dungeons. Park Da-bin firmly stated that he would have done the same, seeing how dear the old man was to them. But then was shocked when the protagonist confirmed that this loyalty was the main reason why he left. The protagonist explained that at some point the people around him began to idolize him too much, and he felt guilty seeing young souls sacrifice themselves to save his old bones. Kwok Sung was afraid to relive that pain again, making his comeback public, as he couldn't see the young sprouts withering away for him again. After listening and understanding this philosophy, the S-rank hunter decided to keep the old man's return a secret as he wished. When asked about the next step of his plan, the old man confirmed that he was still thinking about it. Park Da-bin then revealed that he wanted to ask him for a favor. Later, in the Green Forest, Kwok Sung remembered that the green color of the bracelet indicated a D-rank hunter. He liked this designation as it allowed him to easily determine rank. With these thoughts in mind, he began to remember how he was intrigued by Park Da-bin's request to investigate while participating in a D-rank raid. The hunter had said that the current investigation was making him anxious, so the presence of an experienced hunter would make him feel very reassured. Kwok Sung agreed to help, as the tall one confirmed that he wanted to use his immense power in case things went badly. But just as he began to contemplate a situation that might require his powers, some brute bumped into him. The thug's friend immediately became agitated when the GG said that in such cases, you should apologize. then started bragging about his friend's strength, saying he was almost C rank and that new D ranks like our hero should be afraid of him. The thug was former D-rank hunter Wang Scorpion, the leader of the Scorpion gang, who stated that the young lad should flee. The trio then continued on their way, laughing at the scum behind them. Encountering these three brazen hunters made Kwok Pill's son think about how there would always be those who judge people by first impressions. The suddenly calm-looking man asked him to ignore the thugs as they were known for picking on newcomers. Our old protagonist was shocked when a man named Kim Shellman asked him his name, mistaking him for a student. Upon learning the young-looking guy's name, the man remarked that he must have been named after a legendary hunter. Kim Shellman then asked our hero about his age, and he replied that he was 80 years old. But after realizing his reservation, Kwok Pil Sung stated that he was about to turn 18. The protagonist was the same age as Kim's son, and he suggested that the raids were quite lucrative since they involved such young people. When Kim started talking about his gamer son, the GG thought that his son would be in his early 40s by now. It was at this point that a red-haired girl and her silent friend approached the two of them. The redhead introduced herself as 24-year-old Hunter Park Ji-hong, and her silent friend introduced herself as Lee Eun-ji. She then approached our hero, expressing curiosity about his name, and then kissed him on the cheek, and told the astonished, blushing old man that it was her way of greeting people. It was then that a middle-aged man called out to our hero, saying that youth is beautiful, which our hero found ironic since he was old enough to be the girl's grandfather. Suddenly, his attention was caught by another voice calling his name. It turned out to be a smiling man in a suit, armed with a katana, and when asked for his name, the man introduced himself as the person in charge of this raid, C-rank hunter Kim Dae-jin. That was the end of the introductions. Kim Dae-jin then asked our hero if he was someone close to an S-rank hunter, as the latter doesn't usually recommend hunters. Kwok Pil Sung stated that he is a distant relative of Park Da-bin. After that, the C-rank hunter ordered his subordinates to regroup, as he was going to give a briefing before entering the dungeon. Kim Dae-jin introduced himself to the people as the leader of this expedition, and said that most of them were D-rank rookies, and that he believed that their hunter class had great potential for growth. The C-rank hunter even stated that he knew that some of them would be joining him in his rank soon, and explained that although D-rank dungeons weren't deadly, they were hard to predict. So he insisted that everyone must obey him to ensure a fruitful raid. One of the thugs stated that this was an exaggeration since it was only a D-rank dungeon, to which the old man reprimanded him, pointing out that preparation is the key to success, which infuriated the redhead, when suddenly someone stopped them, right a second before the fight. Van Scorpion confirmed that they should go easy on our hero since he had no experience in dungeons, and that more experienced hunters could appreciate the danger. This made the thug and his henchmen look like buffoons in the eyes of the legendary hunter. That was the end of the briefing. Now it was time for the group to cross the gate. The sun was shining brightly. The magic gate was the entrance to this D-rank dungeon, and upon entering it, our hero and his allies found themselves in a desert-like place. And while Huntress Pak joked that she wished she had brought sunscreen, Van Scorpion stated that he wanted to end things as quickly as possible so he could enjoy a cold beer. GG started to take off his jacket, as it was quite hot in the desert. The leader of the group confirmed that they would start as soon as everyone was inside. Our hero noticed the Scorpion gang casually making plans for the time after the raid, which led him to chastise them for their reckless behavior. This made him remember a scene from the past, where young Park Da-bin was exhausted. The young man confirmed that the raid was more difficult than expected, as he had expected an easy walk due to the small size of the gate. To which the old man replied that this was the reason why they should always be on guard during raids. Kwok Pil's son, sitting on top of the defeated boss, then told the young man that he should always obey him, which he promised to do. Returning to the present, the hero remembered how everyone used to worry when it came to dungeons, as their difficulty was only judged by the size of the entrance. Now that it was easy to determine the exact complexity of a dungeon, however, the hunters seemed more relaxed. Seeing how the world had changed, the hero decided to ask C-Rang something that piqued his interest. Kwok Pil's son asked about the difficulty of this class's dungeons, which made the man assume that this was the first dungeon he had entered. The group leader explained that D-rank dungeons were ideal for D-rank hunters, and then reassured him that C-rank hunters like him were always present in case of trouble. This caused the legendary hero to remark that they seemed to have everything planned out. The group leader was caught off guard when a young-looking guy asked him about the scenario in which the difficulty of the dungeon was underestimated. That's when Van Scorpio turned to the two of them and told our hero that no one would judge him for escaping, seeing how scared he seemed. One of his goons mockingly asked him not to put too much pressure on the newcomer. The C-rank hunters said they were perfectly safe, as the danger had already been determined by the association using the meter. However, our hero was still not convinced, which led the man to add that the dungeon meter has been in use for half a decade now, and has never been wrong in measuring the true difficulty of a dungeon. Kwok Pil Sung asked if that was true, which the man confirmed, while the future C-rank started complaining about how annoying newcomers were. After that, the old man started scolding the hothead. The angry Scorpion's boss grabbed our hero by the shirt and challenged him to object just one more time. The protagonist advised him to always be careful during a raid. To this, the man laughed out loud, before noting that newcomers should be terrified on their first raid, assuming that was the case with our hero. Kwok Pil's son then asked him if he realized the reason for his advice, when suddenly the group was spotted by a giant purple serpent. The appearance of the monster startled the hunters. The scorpion was terrified. The monster then prepared itself, before lunging at him. But at the same moment, with a swift swing, the hero decapitated the monster with a single blow, quickly ending its villainous life. This baffled the future C-rank hunter, as everything happened with incredible speed. After that, Kwok Pil's son then asked our hero to take his advice. Since loud hunters would always be a favorite target of monsters, when the protagonist left, the man was upset. Unable to accept being corrected by a young man, Scorpius clenched his teeth tightly. The concerned red-headed huntress turned to the leader of the group and asked if this snake was really a D rank, for he had never seen such a strong monster. The man found this strange, as D ranks were usually giant dogs or insects, and seeing that this purple worm was definitely a C rank, the leader became worried. Meanwhile, in another place inside the desert dungeon, a young woman asked Gil Wu about their next move. He reassured her, stating that patience was the only way to salvation. The young woman suggested asking for help from the adults. But after thinking for a moment, Gil Wu refused, seeing how deadly this dungeon was and that adults couldn't be trusted. As the two of them continued to argue, a purple presence heard them. Then the young hunters heard a terrifying scream, and were startled when they were discovered by a giant serpent. As the beast set its sights on its prey, they were both overcome with fear and terror and let out a loud scream, at the mercy of the hungry monster. Meanwhile, our hero began walking through the hot desert. The leader of the group, who was walking in front, seemed anxious and deep in thought, remembering how the girl described the monster as something above D rank. Despite his best efforts, it was hard for the man to relax as the serpent looked like a C-rank monster. Before turning around to look at our hero, the man began to think about the fact that the dungeon was definitely not above D level, since the young man had defeated it with one hit in his first raid. But on the other hand, there was still the possibility that the dungeon had been assigned the wrong rank. But the man quickly dismissed that thought, because the meter had never been wrong before. After a while, Wang Scorpion, who was covered in sweat, began to lurch. He then exploded and complained to the leader that they had been walking for half an hour before asking how much longer until break time. Seeing that everyone seemed exhausted, the team leader decided to grant Wang Scorpion's wish. This disappointed the old man. Seeing the youngsters exhausted from a simple 30-minute walk, he realized that they were weak. It was then that the scorpion boss noticed some rising mist. And then suddenly the hunter spotted a giant purple serpent, standing over their heads. Seeing that this serpent seemed more powerful than the first, the frightened group leader asked the men to prepare for battle, assuming it was the boss. The monster then began to approach the hunters. Taking a look at our hero, the future C-rank bare his axe, remembering how the protagonist had embarrassed him earlier. To the leader's surprise, Van Scorpion rushed forward, claiming he could kill this serpent alone. The C-rank tried to warn him of the danger, but Wang Scorpion told the others to admire him while he killed the boss. With those words, he rushed towards the monster, who was curled up and ready to take his life. Immediately, the guy rushed over and hit it with his axe. Wang Scorpion was puzzled to see how insignificant his blow on the snake was. Kwok Pil Sung found the idea of attacking a defending monster completely pathetic, which made him realize how pathetic the hunter's thinking was. After that, the serpent prepared for a counterattack. Seeing this, the man assumed that he had met his doom. But just as the monster began its attack, Van Scorpion found himself rescued by the group leader, who quickly checked his condition. The group leader was relieved to see that his group member was not injured. With those words, he asked his men to stand back, seeing that this powerful monster was, and it was his sole responsibility considering he was the only C rank present. With that, the man in the suit lunged at the beast, leapt into the air, and struck it with his katana, but then was shocked to see that his sword was as ineffective as Wang Scorpion's axe. Suddenly, someone shouted at him to aim for the serpent's head. This intrigued the hunter, but after locating the spot in question, the man used the monster's body as a springboard to leap into the air and gain altitude for a mighty blow, as he was determined to kill it. After that, the leader of the group was finally able to decapitate the monster with a single blow. And just like that, the giant serpent was defeated, leaving everyone relieved and overjoyed. The GG then approached the victor to check on him, to which the man confirmed that he was unharmed. The group leader then gave the young-looking guy credit for this victory over the boss, as thanks to him, he was able to survive the serpent's attack and kill it with ease. Huntress Pack then asked if this meant the end of the raid, which the group leader assumed it did. But worry filled her eyes. The girl pointed out that nothing out of the ordinary was happening. This made the group leader realize how strange it was, since they should have received a notification after killing the boss. But that's when the man realized in a panic, when from behind the rocks, two more purple creatures appeared from behind the rocks. That against all logic, since this was a D-rank dungeon, the monster that he, as a C rank, had barely defeated wasn't even the boss. It was then that our hero stated that the explanation was obvious, pointing out that this dungeon was well above D rank, while the group leader still denied that the association had miscalculated the dungeon's lethality. As he and his men prepared for the upcoming battle, the C-rank hunter could not comprehend this strange situation. Then the middle-aged man informed the group leader that they had monsters at 6 o'clock. After that, Kim finally accepted the fact that this dungeon was far above the D rank. So he ordered the people to flee the scene, thinking about how many were at risk of dying, so they should run away and call for reinforcements. Looking at the man, a smile appeared on Kwok Pil-sun's face, seeing how responsible this young hunter was. Later, further into the wilderness, as they continued walking, Van Scorpion felt himself choking and started yelling at the team leader, rebuking him for running away from the D-rank dungeon despite his rank. The man in the suit said that this dungeon was far above D rank, but the Scorpion boss couldn't believe it, seeing how the dungeon was already D-ranked and how our hero easily killed one of his monsters. This caused Kwok Pil-sun to reprimand the thug for being loud again, to which the man stated that he wasn't afraid of snakes and that he had just been caught off guard earlier. It was then that an eerie sound from a nearby cave startled him. Everyone became alert, expecting a monster to emerge from the darkness. But the so-called monster was a man asking for help. A girl who didn't look well was in desperate need of help. The redhead rushed over to help her. The girl then begged the hunters to save her friend, leaving the heroine confused. The young lady explained how she and her friend had been attacked by a giant snake and that he had gotten hurt protecting her, while the team leader questioned the reason for the child's presence inside the dungeon, and so he demanded an explanation, seeing that she wasn't a hunter. The girl explained how someone had offered them a lucrative part-time job where their main task would be to hide their presence inside the dungeon. That's when Scorpius Huang intervened, as he recognized the girl and her friend as infamous tomb raiders, leaving the girl confused. The term also intrigued our hero, so C-Rank explained that it referred to people who illegally infiltrate dungeons to collect rewards. Seeing the youngsters risking their lives in the dungeons, the old protagonist was puzzled. The dimwit then blamed the children for disturbing the dungeon, implying that it was their fault that such strong monsters appeared in this D-rank dungeon. The leader confirmed that they were two different problems, but the man insisted that they were the cause of the anomalies. When asked about the fate of the tomb raiders, the C-rank hunter confirmed that they had to rescue them at all costs. This infuriated the Scorpion boss as he stated that they shouldn't save the children when their own lives were at stake. But before the leader could respond, Huang Pil-sung offered to help the tomb raiders, to which the man in the suit said the risks were too high. However, seeing that they couldn't leave them behind, the GH offered to go alone to appease the terrified hunter. Huang Scorpion stated that he would not resist his choice to walk freely towards his end. With those words, the young-looking fellow instructed the leader to evacuate the dungeon while he rescued the children. Seeing how Huang Pil-sung demonstrated advanced skills and even discovered the weak spot of the serpent, the team leader decided to believe in him. After that, the leader decided to follow the hero's will. Huang Pil-sung then declared that he would carry the injured man. The girl turned to him. and anxiously asked if he would really help. To which he confirmed with a reassuring smile that he would save them both. And so the team leader ordered the men to depart. As they left, the Scorpion gang began to mock our hero for rushing into danger. The girl, however, did not seem to share this sentiment, as she was actually worried that he might get hurt. Even though he thought it was an idiotic gamble, the team leader had no choice but to comply, seeing how limited their choices were. Soon after, in the cave where the wounded man was hiding, he began to think about his employers, who had lied to them, but he blamed himself for trusting the adults. The man then argued that his offer was too lucrative, as all they had to do was to hide in a low-risk dungeon and wait to be cleared out to snatch the rewards, but the young man still wasn't convinced. The man even argued that since they were just students, no one would arrest them and instead give them a light warning. After hearing that they had literally hit the jackpot, the young man gave in and agreed. Back in the present, the injured man was worried about his friend Unsu. Suddenly, he noticed something approaching. The frightened boy quickly grabbed a branch because he expected the worst. Another monster? But the one who arrived was human. Gilwoo was finally reunited with Yunsu. The boy was then intrigued when a mysterious man entered the cave. The girl introduced our hero as a hunter who came to their rescue. But Gilwoo could hardly believe it, as the man looked too young to be him. This enraged the old man, who slapped the boy on the head. Kwok Pil Sung told the insolent man that the child's place was at home studying, not in a dangerous dungeon looting. Eun Soo told him about the flooding in her house, which is why she took the job, as she was desperate for money and shelter. The old man was angered by the actions of the hirers, seeing how they risked ordinary children for easy profit. With these words, Kwok Pil Sun suggested that the Tomb Raiders catch up with his group and join him. But that's when a giant purple serpent entered the cave and found them by opening its mouth and releasing some poison on its fangs. This horrified the children. The boy was sure they had managed to get away from him, and seeing that he was too hurt to run, he urged the two of them to run without, but Yunsu refused to leave him behind. To which Kwok Pil Sung declared that he wouldn't leave anyone behind. The boy convinced our hero to run away with his girlfriend, to which the old man praised his courage despite his young age. Kwok Pil Sun stated that it is the responsibility of adults to take care of children, so he said that he wouldn't leave anyone behind, and lunged at the giant monster, while the children watched in amazement. Meanwhile, in a running group, a thug started complaining that they were stuck in a dungeon where they couldn't even fight. The team leader calmed the man down by informing him that the exit was right ahead. He then began to think about Kwok Pil Sun, who might have a hard time rescuing the children. This doubt made him question his own decision to trust our hero. Kim Chul Man then began to look around the area for the gate, when he suddenly noticed something surprising. He quickly called for the team leader, because it was about the gate. The exit from the dungeon was disappearing, leaving the hunters in complete shock. Seeing this, Wang Scorpion demanded a plan from the team leader. Kim Dae-jin began to think about the fact that the entrance to the dungeon had appeared 3 days ago, and its disappearance was a sign that the dungeon was about to fail. It seemed to take about 7 days. The man assumed that they would be fine for now. With these thoughts, the leader of the group began to think that the Tomb Raiders were indeed the cause of these strange events. When he was suddenly brought back to reality by the group members demanding a plan, Kim Dae-jin calmed people down by explaining that the exit would reappear after the dungeon was closed, which the Scorpion boss found laughable, since there was no way the D-rank hunters could clean up a dungeon that was so superior to their rank. After that, Kim Cheol-man realized that failure meant eternal confinement in that dungeon. The group leader explained that the gate would also open when the dungeon closed, which was a risky plan, but perhaps their only way to survive, and then suggested they cool down and calmly assess the situation. It was then that the thug noticed something. The hunters discovered they were surrounded by giant snakes, which terrified them. When the first one lunged at them, the group leader ordered the men to get ready. Kim Dae-jin encountered 5 opponents, so he assumed that even the D ranks would be able to overpower them with a solid plan, aiming for the monsters' heads. With those words, the group leader asked the team to help him, while Scorpion Wang began to fear the worst. After that, Kim Dae-jin rushed towards the giant beast, so he jumped on the first one and decapitated it with one swing of his blade, when he was suddenly attacked by the second serpent, leaving him no choice but to try and block the attack. It was then that one hunter decided to help him, throwing a fire spell at the monster, which even he had to dodge. However, this attack only enraged the beast, which turned on the wizard, to which the swordsman told the creature that this battle was between them. Before chopping off its head, with that, the second serpent was defeated. Kim Dae-jin counted the 3 remaining snakes. With this, he was able to defeat the monster, and despite how difficult the task seemed, he was confident that it was possible. Scorpius Huang felt relieved, as these monsters were not as strong as they seemed, but it was then that he noticed a giant 3-headed purple serpent standing right behind him. The group was terrified, assuming it was the final monster, while the team leader linked its shocking appearance to the ongoing anomalies. The serpent hissed with its maw, and after that, the great beast attacked the hunters with its powerful tail. The scorpion boss found himself facing the monster while his gang members begged him for help. But in the end, the thug decided to run away and abandon his friend. The guy saw the monster coming, but before it could devour him, he was mysteriously hit by a projectile, by none other than Huntress Puck. After that, the girl discovered that she had become the target of the dungeon boss. But in fact, she deliberately played the role of a decoy to give the C-rank hunter an opportunity to attack. Kim Dae-jin was able to land a clean strike, cutting off another head in his path, optimistically believing that there were only 2 heads left. But that's when something intriguing happened. A fresh wound on the monster quickly healed. To the man's surprise, a new head had just been created. With that, the monster returned to full strength. Yes, full Enlek. This made Kim Dae-jin assume that this was the one that would kill him. The monster's weak point was in its head, but he missed. Then he was taken by surprise. A powerful blow from the tail of the 3-headed serpent, slamming him into the wall, and made him cough up blood. The gunslinger was shocked to see the C-rank hunter defeated, when fear suddenly filled her eyes, as the boss monster began aiming at her, causing her to scream in panic. But just as she was about to be devoured, someone grabbed her, whispered in her ear to hold on tight to him, and led her out of harm's way. The rescuer then began to run away carrying Huntress Puck. When he checked her condition, the young lady began to blush at the sight of her savior. Finally arriving on the scene, Kwok Pil-sung asked his hard-working ally, Kim Jae-hoon, to let him deal with the 3-headed monster. Huntress Park was impressed by our hero, who asked her if she was hurt, but she quickly denied it. That's when our hero was accosted by the beaten team leader, who asked him about the Tomb Raider and why he wasn't with them. Kwok Pil-sung confirmed that the kids were unharmed, before moving on to a more serious problem, stating that the dungeon would go crazy seeing the boss leave his usual spot and the gate disappear. Kim Jae-hoon apologized to the young-looking guy, saying it was his fault, but the protagonist assured him that it wasn't, because this problem was bigger than the C-rank group leader. Kwok Pil-sung then praised the young one for his efforts and good work. With that, the protagonist and the monster stood face to face. The protagonist stated that it was now his turn to fight, so Kwok Pil-sung lunged at the monster. Lunging at the monster with all his might, the hero swiftly dodged the deadly jaws, before chopping off its head, and then calmly landed on the ground. It was then that the C-rank hunter revealed to him the boss's ability to grow heads. The hero was shocked to see it for himself. Kwok Pil-sung scolded the man for not telling him about this annoying ability earlier. This made the girl lose hope and give in to despair. Even the team leader started to think that they were going to die here. That was when Kwok Pil-sung asked them to have faith. Remembering a saying that implies that giving up is only possible when counting cabbages, this saying puzzled the girl with its mediocrity. The team leader agreed with the young-looking guy, as they should all stay optimistic and keep fighting until the end. Kim Jae-hoon announced that he will be helping our hero, who asked him to be careful with his injuries. But the team leader stated that he felt better than ever after being healed by our hero. However, the girl still had her doubts, but decided to help nonetheless. This pleased our hero, and he asked his allies not to give up hope, seeing how a continuous attack would eventually reveal the monster's weakness. With that, Kwok Pil-sung asked his allies to support him, and so the second round began. The purple boss prepared to attack, making the hunters wary. Kwok Pil-sung found himself under the attack of a fiery explosion. Everyone feared the worst and shouted for the GG to dodge, but witnessed the protagonist withstand this fiery attack. The girl was also shocked at his strength and resilience. But as soon as the head stopped spewing fire, Kwok Pil-sung leapt out of the flames, lunging at the monster, claiming that such tricks don't work on him, and attacked it again with more power. And after a few precise blows, the monster was cut into pieces, which fell to the fall right behind the hero. Tough guys don't look at cut dragons. Neither the middle-aged man nor the C-rank leader could believe that this person was a D-rank, seeing how such skills surpassed a D-ranked hunter. The guy stood and looked up, contemplating the outcome of the battle. It was then that our hero noticed something strange, as the monster didn't seem to be completely defeated yet. This regeneration was annoying our hero, who had no idea how to kill the boss. Suddenly, he noticed something. Kwok Pil Sun had an idea as he looked at the rocks. With that, the hero finally had a plan of action, and he quickly jumped up onto the cliff. And once he was high enough, Kwok Pil Sun gathered his strength and shouted loudly, reaching his maximum strength, to chop a massive boulder in half. The target of the falling rock was a giant serpent. With that, the dungeon boss was crushed forever. Everyone looked on in shock with disbelief. Was the monster dead? When suddenly the group of hunters received a message from the system announcing that the dungeon had been conquered. Huntress Puck couldn't believe it. Everyone was beyond elated at this marvelous victory. The team leader was relieved, because thanks to our hero's intervention, the team had avoided a horrible end. It was then that the dungeon gate appeared again. Kwok Pil Sung decided to ask his group if any of them were injured. The C-ranked hunter confirmed that they were all saved by his intervention, thinking about the fact that the young-looking guy gave off the same aura as a professional veteran. He continued to admire the prodigy, and the latter stated that they should head home. Later that day at the Blue Sky Hunters Guild, the report was questioned as being delusional, because it clearly stated that a simple D-rank rookie had conquered a dungeon above his rank. This report was presented by C-rank hunter Kim Di-jin, who confirmed that what he wrote was not a lie, and that they should enroll the young prodigy into the ranks of Blue Sky, seeing how strong he was. But as he continued to explain, the one sitting in the chair urged him to stop, stating that even if the dungeon was above C rank, there was no way such a prodigy could remain unnoticed until now. Kim Dae-jin tried to defend his argument, but the man wouldn't listen, saying that he would act as if the report had never been written. The C-rank hunter had no choice but to agree. After this brief encounter, the man took a deep breath, before taking another deep breath, and exhaled in relief. The S-rank hunter then asked the old man, who had been hiding, to show himself. Kwok Pil Sung asked if the group leader had left, which Park Da-bin confirmed, saying that his lie was to scare him away. The S-rank hunter then stated that the commotion caused by the protagonist would definitely attract attention. But Kwok Pil Sung stated that he had no choice, as he had only returned to save young lives, which were always at risk. Expressing his bewilderment, S-rank hunter asked the old man if the report was accurate. Kwok Pil Sun confirmed, saying that the association must be aware of its ranking errors, using his silence on the matter as evidence. Before stating that it wasn't the only problem, intrigued the high, S-rank hunter was shocked when the hero suggested that the association was behind the people who use children as Tomb Raider. Still unable to believe it, he asked the protagonist about his sources, to which the old man revealed that he had recently attacked the Tomb Raider base. This upset Park Da-bin, and he slapped the table, since the higher-ups would probably never admit their sins, seeing how their word and authority came from their power and imposing appearance. Kwok Pil Sung found this ego highly probable. The old man then asked the young one if he would keep silent about the association's crimes, to which the S-rank hunter explained that they did not have the necessary evidence to act, stating that its growth would definitely exceed our hero's expectations and that they should not be reckless in fighting such a dangerous foe, recalling how his master had always taught him to be careful. The protagonist then offered to look through the archives of the dungeon raiders, but was quickly intrigued when the man stated that it would be impossible. Park Da-bin reminded the old man that he had been assigned a D rank, and reminded him that the records were only available to hunters of C rank or higher. Kwok Pil Sung expressed how tedious the mystery was. However, the S-rank hunter saw this as the perfect opportunity and held out a piece of paper to our hero. After reading it, the young-looking fellow was shocked. The next day at the Hunters Association, a huge line formed inside the building. The man instructed those taking the promotion exam to quietly line up. Among the participants was a nervous Park Ji-hyun, who was quite anxious because it was her first promotion exam, and she doubted her ability to pass it, but she was convinced that the experience would be worth it. The girl then began to wonder if our hero would also be taking the exam. She then began to fantasize about whether she could pass the exam. What if she fell in love with the guy? But quickly dismissed that thought, finding her own thoughts strange and inappropriate at this time. Suddenly, someone appeared in front of her, stating how many hunters were here. Park Ji-hyun yelled at the man for cutting in line in front of her, and the hunter turned to her to show off his color. This shocked the girl since red meant he was a B-rank hunter. The man then pointed out that she was still wearing the green bracelet, which meant she was only a Dre D rank. The girl loudly stated that he had no right to cut in line just because he had a higher rank, to which the B rank hunter said that in their line of work, power determines everything. The man then stated that this was an unchangeable reality. It was then that he noticed that Huntress Pack was his type, which embarrassed her. As he grabbed her shoulder, Red asked Green if she was dating anyone at the moment, when suddenly someone grabbed his wrist. The old man demanded to know the reason for this mess in such a crowded place. The girl was shocked to meet our hero again under such circumstances. This made the B-rank hunter assume that the two of them were already dating. And while Wok Pil Song was confused, the girl denied the allegation. It was then that the man noticed that our hero was also wearing a green bracelet. So he tried to assert his superiority by asking the protagonist if he had seen his red badge. Our hero confirmed that he was aware of the man's rank. This infuriated the B-rank hunter, because despite the difference in rank, the young-looking fellow dared to confront him. The hunter tried to free himself, and was completely shocked to see that Wok Pil Song was holding him back with only one hand. This made him doubt that our hero was actually a D rank. That's when someone asked Baek Sang Hyuk to stop that scene. This pissed off the B rank, who started screaming, but the person who calmed him down was a security guard. As the men forcibly took him outside, they asked Baek Sang Hyuk not to make a fuss. B-Rang said he would never forget their faces and would come back to take revenge on these newcomers, making himself look like a buffoon in the old man's eyes. Huntress Pack thanked our hero, who asked her if she would try to take the exam today. The girl confirmed her participation, as promotion exams were rare events worth trying, and then with a grin she said that she might not have the strength to pass the exam. It was then that the old man put his hand on her shoulder. Wok Pil Song reassured her by declaring that she would do well before asking her to do only what she could. The girl took the advice with a flushed face and a loud and frequent heartbeat. Even though she didn't like those younger than her, Wok Pil Song gave her the impression of a grown man. With that, the protagonist decided to give her a gift. To her surprise, it turned out to be yoken, an Asian dessert much loved by the elderly, which the protagonist originally planned to eat herself but decided to offer her. According to Wok Pil Song, eating the sweet food should help her calm her anxiety. With that, the protagonist went on his way, wishing her good luck in her exams. Looking at the unexpected gift, the girl noted the strange taste, stating that the hero's taste resembled that of an old man when she took a bite of yoken. At the same time, on the neighboring balcony, the mysterious woman expressed her disappointment, seeing how spectacular the battle between the hero and the B-rank could have been. In any case, she was sure that they would meet again. Meanwhile, the B-rank hunter was getting frustrated, seeing how inhuman the D-rank strength was. It caused his hands to tremble, either from fear or from being squeezed. C-rank hunter Kim Sung-jun introduced himself as the examiner for the promotion to D-rank. He informed the candidates that this session was to provide them with the necessary information about the exam process. With that, Kim Sung-jun began his explanation. The first part will consist of one-on-one duels between D-rank hunters. The one who defeats his opponent or makes him surrender wins, and in case of dangerous incidents, the examiner will intervene to ensure safety. The C-rank hunter then added that the winner will be evaluated by an observer assigned to the desired rank through a duel. This made the hunters realize that failure in sparring or defeat by the observer would result in a failure of the exam. But the C-rank hunter reassured them, explaining that they could still pass if the observer deemed their skills worthy of the desired rank, regardless of the results. With that, he wished them all good luck. Hearing this, the tall man in the crowd trembled with excitement. Wong Scorpion was ecstatic, finally getting a chance to enter the C rank. After his last raid, his magic power had mysteriously skyrocketed, giving him the confidence that he could compete with most C-rank hunters. This made the thug feel grateful to our hero, as this power was the result of the hero's valor during the last dungeon. But as soon as he looked at his opponent, he was puzzled. It was none other than the prodigy himself, who greeted him cheerfully. Guak Pelson asked Scorpius to be gentle with him, and the man immediately realized that victory was impossible. Later, when the gunner began her sparring, her opponent was nearly exhausted, and noticing this, she prepared her bow and used the wind arrow skill. This frightened her opponent, who, despite her best efforts to block the arrow, was tossed into the air and thrown far away. With that, the young man was quickly defeated, marking the victory of Park Ji-hyun, who was shocked at her own accomplishment. The shooter began to reflect on her sudden increase in strength to the When Guak Pelzon approached her with congratulations, Huntress Pak asked him if he had already won, to which he confirmed. When the examiner asked his opponent to leave the sparring area, the girl took the opportunity to express how strange the situation seemed, which intrigued our hero. According to her, her magic power had grown mysteriously. So, our hero explained that this sudden increase in strength was the result of the last raid that was above D rank. She didn't quite understand. Guak Pelson had explained to her that killing monsters in dungeons allowed hunters to absorb magic stones and magic power. This meant that the higher the rank of the dungeon, the more terrifying monsters defeated. The more magic power could be obtained and the purer the stones. This made the girl's eyes glow with excitement, as it meant that clearing more difficult dungeons would allow her to quickly climb the ranks. Suddenly, our hero brought her back to reality in anger. The irritated man angrily stated that the lower ranks didn't stand a chance in the stronger dungeons, and that it was a miracle they had survived the last raid without getting injured. He scolded her, saying that recklessness was the hunter's greatest enemy. As our hero continued to rant, Hunter Pak, who assumed she was older than him, began to feel like she was talking to an old man. Suddenly, a woman in red heels approached, asking about the loud noise, and quickly assumed it was a couple arguing. Although Park Ji-hyun was delighted at the misunderstanding, our hero firmly stated that it wasn't a quarrel, but a moralizing session for a silly child. This saddened the huntress, while the protagonist apologized for the trouble. The lady, who found him amusing, quickly recognized him as Kwak Pil-sung, which shocked our hero. It was then that the crowd recognized the lady as Yu Seon-young, an S-ranked hunter, and began to wonder why she was here. The lady then remembered to introduce herself to our hero, stating that she was in charge of organizing this exam. That made Kwak Pil-sung quickly realize that she was from the association, and he asked if she needed anything from him. Yu Seon-young stated that a rumor was spreading about a D-rank rookie who closed the dungeon by himself. That's how cool he is. This caused the crowd to start whispering and wondering if the rumor about Kwak Pil-seon was true or false. This annoyed our hero as he didn't want to attract attention, so he asked Sarang if she had come to see him. To his surprise, Yu Seon-young did something unexpected by offering him a chance to rise to B rank. She said that if the rumors were true, her offer must sound tempting. And while our indifferent hero quickly declined, the overexcited gunslinger immediately agreed on his behalf. And so the hunter volunteered to be his opponent. Remembering that candidates must fight the B rank to become one themselves, Kwak Pil-sung recognized the man as someone who had been in line earlier. B-rank hunter Hyuk talked about how surprised he was to learn that our protagonist was the rumored prodigy. Upon recognizing this hunter, the crowd started whispering that he was close to A rank and that his presence meant that they didn't want our protagonist to jump ranks. The S-ranked huntress then thanked the man for his generous volunteering, while our hero confirmed that he didn't want to reach B rank yet. But it was then that he noticed. The hunter launched a surprise lunge that he barely dodged. Landing on the ground, Hunter Bakes stated that the guy might have what it takes to enter the B rank, seeing as how he managed to dodge. This annoyed the old man, seeing how extreme the B rank was, testing his skills for a test he didn't want to take. Hearing this, the hunter expressed his disappointment in the candidate for giving up at the very beginning, and said that it wasn't that easy to boost a rank. The B-ranked hunter said that he would do everything he could to prevent the hero from being promoted, even if it means injuring him to the point of insanity or even killing him. Yu Seon-young started thinking about how this man was said to be close to A rank, and how he could have been very useful if not for his character. His situation also made her think about the prodigy's reaction. With that, Kwak Pil-sun wondered aloud if there was a way to make the B-rank character match his skills, something Hunter Bakes didn't quite understand. He was even more confused and demanded an explanation while our hero continued to think aloud what to do with the asshole. Kwak Pil-sun vaguely stated that he was pondering, before firmly confirming that he was trying to think of a way to punish him, which annoyed the hunter. Hearing this, B-Rang was determined to make the protagonist suffer, so he lunged at him with his skill, the Spear of Mana. The guy stood directly in the path of the blow. However, our unflappable hero didn't try to dodge, but instead grabbed the spear to the amazement of its owner. Everyone was shocked to witness this amazing feat. With that, the old man finally made a decision. He now decided to correct the B-rank hunter's behavior by beating him up. Seeing this, everyone fell silent. Hunter Buck couldn't have been more annoyed with this son of a dog, so our hero decided to show him whether he really overestimated himself or not. It was then that it caught the B-rank's attention. The mere presence of his opponent was huge and terrifying, so he instinctively tried to increase the distance between them. Being unable to fully comprehend what he had just felt, seeing the encounter with this hunter felt like being at the mercy of a beast. It was then that he remembered that an S-ranked hunter was present. Seeing how he was being humiliated by the newcomer, the man decided to use the strength he was saving for his promotion exam by applying 3 physical enhancements to himself. Yu Sung-yeon was happy to finally see him fight at full strength, making her expect great things from him. Seeing that his enhancements would run out in 5 minutes, the B-rank hunter realized that he was competing against time. But just as he was about to fight at full strength, he realized that our hero had already closed the distance and was ready to snap his fingers. The guy was terrified. Wok Pil Sun then stated that only physical punishment is effective against impolite children, before knocking the young one down with a simple slap on the forehead. Bak Sang-hyuk was left in a state of shock and pain, once again unable to comprehend the recent events. But it was then that the hero declared that the punishment wasn't over yet, and sent him flying again with a flick of his fingers, leaving him to fall to the ground. Wok Pil Sung then asked the young one to simply surrender. But the proud B-Rang was determined to continue, swinging his spear, which the old man easily dodged. This didn't surprise the protagonist, as he expected Hunter Buck to need a longer beating session. It was then that the fight was stopped by S-Rank, who told B-Rank that the outcome of the fight was obvious. But Hunter Buck didn't want to accept that, as he was still determined to fight. Yu Seon-young then sighed and stated how unattractive determined men were, before delivering a powerful kick to B-Rang's stomach. Srang then asked B-Rang to leave with dignity, seeing how he had put his best foot forward, before turning to Wok Pil Sung with a cheerful look on her face, and declare that she was sure he had won. He now has B-Rang's status. This unexpected confidence intrigued our hero. How did she know but would win? To which Yu Sung-young coquettishly stated that she only chooses the best of men, while Huntress looked on in horror. Srang then suggested that they continue their conversation in private in her lab. Our hero nonchalantly agreed, and while the S-rank Huntress was satisfied with his answer, the D-rank gunner was filled with rage. After a while, they were already in the lab. Soon after, the lady asked her guest to apologize for the mess in her workplace, and pointed to her small refrigerator and offered him something to drink. She said her favorite drinks were in here, but she wasn't sure if she'd hit the guy's taste. Then Gigi took a sip of his drink. The old man asked the young lady the reason for this private conversation. The S-rank Huntress decided to cut right to the chase, and invited the protagonist to join her in the association, leaving him in complete shock. According to the scientist, the organization is always trying to recruit promising new members. However, our protagonist is confused since this prestigious offer was made to someone who just moved from D rank to B rank. Yu Seon-young confirmed that she had ulterior motives, so she grabbed the cloth on the table and lifted it up, revealing a mysterious machine that confused the old man. The S-rank Huntress explained to our uncomprehending hero that it was a dungeon raid meter. Our hero was wary when she explained how this machine allowed the association to become stronger. This meter allowed hunters to enter raids that matched their ranks, unlike in the past when dungeons had unknown ranks. The S-ranked hunter then explained that the device wasn't perfect, which confirmed to him that the association was aware of its flaws. Yu Sung-young confirmed that the possibility of misjudgment was small but not impossible, before asking our protagonist to consider a scenario in which the hunters were aware of this small risk. Gwak Pil Sun stated that weak hunters would think twice before entering raids knowing that their lives were on the line. The scientist agreed that this reaction is very likely and that it would lead to a significant reduction in the already small number of hunters, causing many negative consequences, all because of a very small chance of miscalculation. However, Gwak Pil Sun argued that everyone should be aware of this small mistake because it could lead to hunters being victimized. But according to the scientist, the logical choice was to sacrifice a few lives for the good of the many. This response enraged our hero, who said that hunters should only give their lives of their own free will, and that it was wrong to let them die for some unknown reason. Having said this, the scientist realized that her guest had rejected her offer and would not work with them. Gwak Pil Sung asked her to take his words to her superiors. He asked her to insult them on his behalf as he was leaving. He loudly berated them like an old grandfather. Despite admiring the hunter's courage, the girl had a resolution to show him that righteousness would surely lead to his downfall. Gwak Pil Sun walked out of the building with a haggard expression on his face, thinking about how annoyed his former student would be to hear how his day had gone. That's when the man noticed our hero, intriguing him as he approached. Guak Pil Sung recognized the man, who smiled slightly at him. Meanwhile, the master was handed the file, and he praised the man for his good work. The boss then asked if it was the dossier of a prodigy who had single-handedly tackled an entire dungeon. John Lennon confirmed that it was, before adding that the man had just entered the B rank after defeating Baksin Hyuk. That file belonged to someone whose name was Guak Pil Sun, a name that Master liked. The C-rank hunter brought it to his superior. While the hunter presented the prodigy in his report to the chief and explained how he jumped C-rank, our hero tried his best not to look at the angry S-rank hunter. The hero felt intimidated by his disciple's anger when he mentioned the popularity his master had achieved. The S-rank hunter then asked to speak to the prodigy in private. Hunter Kim happily left the two of them alone, leaving the room. Thus, the information was passed on to Kwok Pilson. The hunter asked the old man for some explanations. After listening to what had happened, the disciple pointed out that his master had been tricked by Yuseon Young. This intrigued our hero. According to Park Dabin, this woman was one of the newly recognized S ranks and an important figure in the association. And he stated that the most rational explanation for her suggestion was that she wanted to recruit someone who knew about the meter defect, implying that his trial for promotion to B rank was just a way of making it look professional, and that she would surely silence him if he lost, since that was her way of doing business. The S-rank hunter then stated that his refusal to join must have pissed her off, as it went against her plan. Kwok Pilson proudly took credit for that refusal. However, Pa Dabin claimed that the lady was persistent, which made him worried about her next move. Having said that, Puck Dabin invited his old master to join his guild. Kwok Pilson quickly and without a second thought declined. This answer took the man by surprise, forcing him to insist that solitude would only put him in danger, and that Blue Sky was one of the top 5 guilds in the country and could protect him. But our hero remained unfazed. Before giving his answer, Kwok Pilson stated that he was a legendary hunter who didn't need anyone's protection and would never be fooled by association. Hearing this, Kwok Dabin confirmed, Grandpa had already been cheated, to which the old man stated that he didn't take it seriously. After that, the S-rank hunter sighed disappointedly and decided to respect the old master's wish. Park Debin asked the old man to be careful, to which the B-rank hunter asked him to have faith in him. After that, as our hero was on his way out, he was approached from behind by a girl. It was none other than Park Ji-hoon, who was tiring herself out looking for him. Sniper Girl proudly presented her C-rank badge to our hero. She proudly announced that she had successfully passed the promotion exam. Quack Pilson congratulated her, and she confirmed that he was the reason for her success. The girl flinched when asked if that was the only reason she wanted to see him. And so, with a flushed face, she stated that she just wanted to thank him for giving her the courage she needed, and that she had been looking for him for some time now. The sniper then tried to change the subject by asking our hero if he had come here after being invited to the Blue Sky Guild. Quack Pilson confirmed that he had not, as he had planned to remain guildless, which shocked the girl. It was at this moment that someone approached our hero. That person was a suspicious hunter named Li Huan, who introduced himself as a human resources officer of the Northern Lights Guild. The name intrigued our hero, so Li Huan explained that their guild, ranked 11th in the top rankings, was interested in recruiting our talented hero. Seeing Quack Pilson's reaction, the man confirmed that they were indeed number 11. After which he pointed out that our hero, who had been silent, still hadn't joined any guilds, and asked if he had something on his mind. But to his shock, the prodigy stated that he would like to work independently. After that, our hero decided to leave. In a panic, Li Huan stopped Quack Pilson and asked him to at least attend the presentation before refusing, which piqued Park Ji-hoon's interest. What kind of presentation? Mr. Huang explained that Northern Lights was making a presentation to make themselves known among hunters, and that they would be giving C-rank weapons to those who came. Upon hearing about the free weapons, the sniper was ecstatic. Li Huan said that the goal was to convince hunters to join while improving the guild's reputation. This puzzled Quack Pilson, while his girlfriend said they should go to the event immediately. Upon arriving at the steep hindquarters, the overly excited girl remarked how natural it was to see so many people in the 11th strongest guild, while our tired hero stood there complaining about her dragging him along. Park Ji-hoon claimed that this would allow them to get free weapons, which our hero didn't find worth such a hassle. The annoyed girl then explained that she just wanted a free item after the promotion, and our hero pointed out how weird this giveaway was. However, the sniper girl argued that there was nothing suspicious about it, considering that Northern Lights was one of the best guilds. This made our puzzled hero realize how simple this girl really was, and how strange this whole situation was. Soon after, Huntress Puck was intrigued by a room, where they were asked to wait because it was completely empty. When all of a sudden laughter came out of nowhere. It was none other than Li Huan greeting them. And as soon as Kwok Pilsen demanded an explanation, he found that he and Huntress Park were surrounded by a bunch of armed men, after which these suspicious types announced the start of the enrollment process. Finding himself in this strange situation, our hero demanded an explanation, saying that they couldn't just force them to join the Northern Lights. However, Li Huan said that no one would be hurt if the guild applications were signed. Kwok Pilsen asked what would happen if they refused. Then the suspicious man snapped his fingers and said that things would get very bad while all the newcomers prepared to attack. Li Huan said that she would now show him why he should agree. After that, Huntress Park started to panic, and to the man's surprise, our hero agreed. Kwok Pilsen said he would sign the paper, and Li Huan was happy with the outcome. Handing over the documents, the guy thought about how after signing the contract, a powerful curse would activate, turning the prodigy into a puppet of Northern Lights. But to his surprise, Kwok Pilsen demanded a meeting with the guildmaster before signing, saying that he must know the man he'd be working for. Li Huan agreed, convinced that our hero's unknown plan would never work. After that, the guildmaster was contacted, and he confirmed that he would be arriving soon. Kom Young-hoon, A rank, the leader of Northern Lights, was pleased with Li Huan's progress. The man then informed our heroes that the guildmaster would be arriving soon. Seeing the expression on the thug's face, the sniper apologized to the protagonist for dragging him into this mess. But Kwok Pilsen said that the blame lies with him since Li Huan came to him, which means the real target was him. The frightened girl asked the prodigy if he was really going to sign the paper, to which he calmed her down by saying he would take care of the problem. But despite his words, Park Ji-hoon was still worried, when suddenly there was a loud laughter in the room. The guildmaster had just arrived and introduced himself to the protagonist, then welcomed him to Northern Lights while all of his members bowed respectfully. Li Huan was then shocked to see our protagonist carelessly ask Kom Young-hoon if he was really in charge here, which made him explode with anger and demand respect for his master. But he was stopped. The A-rank hunter said that he wasn't embarrassed by the guy's behavior, and he even liked it, then put his hand on his shoulder and said he had high hopes for our hero. Kwok Pilsen asked him if he always lies to people like that, to which the guildmaster explained that he only does it for the sake of his guild, which is ranked 11th in the country. He went on to explain that they couldn't go higher because they lacked an S-ranked member, and then pointed out that it was possible that our hero had the potential to become one. That was why he used extreme methods to recruit great talents, stating that their guild would greatly benefit from this prodigy. Having said that, the guildmaster welcomed the young man into their ranks and promised him rewards. Kwok Pilsen then asked the man if those were his last words, leaving both him and his henchmen in shock. One of the men tried to approach the old man, but GH grabbed his arm and elbowed him in the face. Seeing this strength and speed, everyone was stunned. Li Huan was especially furious. The old man then pointed out that Northern Lights claimed to be one of the best guilds in the country, and yet they forced hunters to join their ranks by force. He pointed to their leader and said they were all just criminals masquerading as hunters. This greatly angered the man with glasses, who was furious at Kwok Pilsen's righteous behavior. He then decided to teach him humility by attacking the protagonist with his skill, freezing grass. Upon seeing this attack, the protagonist became wary. Li Huan started laughing, stating that freezing is exactly what Kwok Pilsen deserves. Shocked and wondering what to do quickly, the hero used his magic power to shake off the ice skill, leaving his caster completely baffled. Standing firmly on his feet, the hero lunged at Li Huan, who tried to raise his ice defense in a panic. However, Kwok Pilsen declared that it was useless, and then delivered a devastating blow to the man, right in the man's face, squeezing him like a piece of paper, causing him to writhing in pain. Just like that, Li Huan was defeated. Even though he wasn't the fighting type, the guild master was still shocked to see an A-rank hunter knocked out with a single blow, which meant that the target was hiding his true strength, irritatedly clucked his tongue. The Northern Radiance leader ordered his men to attack the protagonist. It was then that one of the thugs tried to attack him from behind, but Kwok Pilsen easily dodged the blade, and then struck him from behind, and used it as a stepping stone. to kick thug number 2 right in the face. Just like that, 2 hunters were incapacitated in an instant. But just then, the hero noticed that the leader of the thugs was ready to strike him. And so, dodging the flaming blade, Quack Pilson decided to increase the distance between himself and his enemy. Now armed with a legendary level weapon known as the Fang of the Fire Dragon, the man reprimanded our hero for his behavior. The guildmaster then stated that he was confident of victory now that he had exposed his fire dragon fang. Quack Pilson noted how magnificent his weapon seemed. The thug explained that this weapon, which he had obtained in the S-rank dungeon, gave him S-rank-like strength. This caused the old man to scold the youngster for relying on weapons to compensate for his own weakness. Hearing this, he was annoyed, and the perpetrator lunged at our hero, but Quack Pilson dodged every swing. While the man grew increasingly angry at his inability to hit his target, his face was horrified at the realization of his own helplessness. The old man explained that regardless of the power of his guild or the quality of his equipment, the thug should have realized by now that he was no match for him. Now, more annoyed than ever, the A-rank hunter forbade our hero to speak to him in such a manner. Quack Pilson then picked up his sword from the floor and used it to easily block the thug's fire dragon fang, leaving the thug completely bewildered as he deflected the S-rank weapon with an inferior blade. Saying that it was time to give the bastard a lesson, Quack Pilson decided to physically punish the culprit. Ko Myung-hoon felt alarmed when our hero gave him a crushing blow to his stomach. The narrative moved a bit back in time to the moment when Ko Myung-hoon was shocked to see his member leave the guild. The young man, who the guildmaster called their best hunter, stated that he had his own motives. The thug had been full of passion and hope in the past, but could not keep the hunters from leaving and hoped that his good behavior would be rewarded by their return. It was then that a man came in, stating that the strong hunter was now part of their guild, and confirmed that the reason he joined was to gain more strength. Much to Ko Myung-hoon's surprise, it made him realize that in order to be big, one had to think big, and that his small dream meant nothing to everyone. From that day on, the man decided to adopt these shameless methods. When he saw talented hunters, he would try to recruit them. And if they refused, he was sure to take revenge on them, which quickly made the guild 11th in the country, erasing his sense of remorse. Returning to the present, the guildmaster woke up in front of a tall hunter. Ko Myung-hoon demanded to know who he was. To his shock, the guild leader of the Blue Sky Guild was in front of him. This made the man panic as this appearance was unexpected. The thug was then surprised by the presence of Quack Pilson, who had immobilized his men. This made him assume that the protagonist was part of the Blue Sky Guild. Upon hearing this, the annoyed protagonist hit the young man on the head. Quack Pilson declared that he would not spare him if he spoke such nonsensical words again. The S-rank hunter then decided to clear the air for the thug by explaining that the hero was not one of his subordinates, which only confused Ko Myung-hoon even more. To his shock, Park Devon revealed that he was indebted to our hero, and that was why he was here to help him. Seeing that such a powerful guildmaster was indebted to our hero, he wondered about his true identity. It was then that the old man caught the thug's attention and asked him if they were really forced to commit such heinous crimes. Ko Myung-hoon confirmed that he just wanted his guild to become number 1. The old man asked him if a deceitful organization was really worthy of being called the best. Upon hearing this, the thug confirmed with his entire being that despite knowing the shamelessness of their methods, they were what allowed his guild to rise in the rankings. Quack Pilson asked the man if he had achieved his desired guild ranking, which made the man upset. In the end, Ko Myung-hoon confirmed that he had no choice, since the current association system favored the big guilds, forcing him to turn to crime for power. Ko Myung-hoon affirmed wholeheartedly that as the guild leader, he would do his best for his guild to prosper. Hearing those words, the men were moved by their leader's determination. The guildmaster was shocked when asked if he would change his methods if the association itself changed. However, the man argued that it would never happen, seeing how the association was becoming more and more important, and the large guilds continued to grow. According to the desperate man, this organization at the pinnacle of power would always remain unchanged. But to his surprise, Quack Pilson promised change. Ko Myung-hoon couldn't believe what he had just heard. The S-rank hunter asked our hero if he had something on his mind. After that, the legendary hunter revealed his intention to overthrow the organization, and to do so by forming a team. That's how badass he is. Meanwhile, outside the room, Park Ji-hoon was trying her best to overhear them. The sniper was curious about the young man who was so carelessly chatting with one of the leaders of the country's top guilds. By the way, the girl was shocked to see that the previous leader of the group was part of Blue Sky, before noting that he looked like someone with potential, which intrigued the hunter. It was then that our hero and the guild master emerged from the room. Srang rushed over to our hero, and while the girl questioned him about his true identity, Hunter Kim asked why he hadn't told him about his connection to the boss. While the two were completely focused on the protagonist, the tall one watched silently. A few minutes earlier, the apprentice had asked his old master about the fate of the thugs, and to his great surprise, Kwok Pilsen had pointed out that the men needed a chance to show their true talent, so they should give Kim Young-hoon a chance to prove his worth, saying that perhaps he had never been given such a chance before. According to the old man, the Northern Lights Guild master should have learned a lesson from his catch-up. This amused the S-rank hunter, as the yoke master hadn't changed even after a decade of separation. That same night, in a steep building, someone was working out in the gymnasium. That someone was a huge man, exhausted from his workout. His barbell touched the floor, and then he finally lowered his weights. It was then that the hunter informed his guild master that someone from the association had come. This intrigued the muscular man, who began to fear the worst. That's when the man approached him and introduced himself as Yoon Do-kyung, the head of the association's major crimes team. Seo Kwang-ho, who was an S-rank hunter and the leader of the Grizzly Guild, one of the top 10 guilds in the country. Seo Kwang-ho asked the man to get straight to the point, saying that he didn't recall being involved in any recent crimes. To his surprise, the man started talking about Ko Myung-hoon, the leader of Northern Lights. That's when the man grabbed his weight and threw it at the visitor, who remained completely unperturbed. Seo Kwang-ho asked Yoon Do-kyung to choose his words carefully before explaining why such a pathetic guildmaster was mentioned, and to his shock, the head of the major crimes team revealed that he had been defeated by a lower-ranked hunter. Guildmaster Grizzly was completely bewildered, and the man said he was now willing to let him explain. As a slight smile appeared on his face, Seo Kwang-ho was eager to hear the whole story. Hunter Kim was now in a difficult position, facing the two-headed Cyclops. Sorang rushed at the beast and swiftly struck it with his sword, causing the monster to roar in agony. The hunter then leaped high on the monster's head and tried to cut off its horn, but it had no effect. It made him angry. It was then that our hero shouted to him to only aim at vulnerable spots. Hunter Kim quickly agreed. While our hero couldn't understand how they were in this situation, the S-rank then begged the old man to become his master. This request intrigued our hero. Kim confirmed that after much deliberation, he decided to follow Gigi to become a capable hunter like him, so he begged to be accepted again. However, our hero deemed it pointless, seeing that the guy was already working under the guildmaster. Then the young man said that Park Daebin was always too busy working, and that he gave full approval for our hero to become his master, leading Kwok Pilsen to think that the whole thing was set up by his former apprentice. The old man then decided to take the hunter under his wing, which made the latter explode with excitement and joy. Returning to the current battle, C-rank had managed to defeat the two-headed Cyclops. When his master noted his progress, the young man felt grateful. Hunter Kim was happy when the old man stated that at this rate, he would definitely reach B-rank soon. But while they were engrossed in their little conversation, the other hunters began to complain about the hero's arrogance and that they were the ones doing all the work while he was quietly watching. This caught our hero's attention, as the hunters hinted that it was only luck that helped the protagonist jump the C-rank. But just as Hunter Kim was about to defend his master, the old man stopped him. Kwok Pilsen asked him to ignore the gossip of others before declaring that they should leave the newly conquered dungeon. At the same time, a mysterious figure was watching them from afar. As the men were all being released, someone approached our hero. It was a shy-looking boy who asked our hero if he had really jumped C-rank. And when asked the reason for his curiosity, the boy asked Kwok Pilsen to take him under his wing, saying he aspired to be as strong as he was. This confused both our hero and his current apprentice. Kwok Pilsen was shocked and asked the boy if he really wanted to have him as a master despite not knowing him, but the boy could hardly answer. Seeing this, the old man tried to chase away the shy boy who didn't even try to resist. Seeing this, our hero doubted the boy's request since the boy gave in so easily. The boy then stated that he would not blame him if he refused an apprenticeship to someone like him. Such an attitude made our hero angry. It was then that Hunter Kim offered to accept the boy's request, stating that he must have his own reasons for overcoming his anxiety and asking for a master, and that he would be glad to have a sparring partner. But in Kwok Pilsen's opinion, The efforts of both student and teacher were important, and so he couldn't teach someone who didn't even want to be a student. The boy, however, firmly affirmed that he did want to, but his confidence was quickly suppressed by the old man's powerful aura. Hunter Kim then convinced Kwok Pilson to take the boy under his wing. And when asked about his willingness to help, the C rank stood firm, much to our hero's surprise, and said that the guild spirit that Park Dabin had taught him meant that they should give a chance to anyone who really wanted it. Seeing the spark in his apprentice's eyes, the old master had no choice but to let the young man raid the next dungeon with them. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the young man confirmed that he would do his best. It was then that our hero remembered to ask his name, and the boy introduced himself as Lee Jong-hwan. After introducing himself, the old man stated that he looked forward to working with him. Kim Dae-jun then introduced himself to the other student and stated that they should get to know each other better, considering how much time they would be spending together. The overjoyed boy asked the C-rank hunter to treat him well, and while Hunter Kim asked to be called senior, our hero sighed, deciding to fulfill Lee Jong-hwan's wish if he really wanted to learn. A few days later, in the dungeon, Kwok Pilson was puzzled by the young man's actions, who just stood there and stared at GG as he yelled at him to get out of the way, before saving him at the last second from being crushed by a giant monster. After a thank you from the shy, protagonist began to get upset, as his student was always distracted seeing how often such incidents happen. The shy one apologized, and the master exploded with anger, seeing that the young man was C rank but never checked his surroundings before rushing forward while Kim tried to calm him down. Lee Jong-hwan apologized again, and Kwok Pilson contemplated his next move on the boy. The man remained depressed and ashamed. As the sun began to set, Lee Jong-hwan found himself face-to-face with a giant golem, so he used magic to strengthen his weapon, to defeat it with a single blow, but it was useless because the golem didn't care. But just as the monster was about to counterattack, our hero stepped in and cut off the creature's arm. But he didn't stop there, and next he destroyed its core. The young man was again grateful for the rescue. After that, the old man scolded him again, seeing how he blindly attacked instead of finding weaknesses first, which made the young man feel ashamed. And so after venting his anger, our hero left the scene, leaving his student alone with his low self-esteem. His older comrade tried to cheer him up, saying that he would do better in the next raid. But the young man ignored him and stated that he needed to be alone, leaving Hunter Kim to worry about him. As he watched in silence as he walked away, later in the same dungeon, the wall was hit in a fury. Lee Jong-hwan found himself overwhelmed with anger. The young man hated the way he was treated, and as soon as he started to think of giving up, he quickly dismissed the thought as he would only have to endure it for a short while. The young man was determined to keep going. It was then that the hunter Kim informed him that it was time to leave the dungeon. And after that, the boy hurriedly joined them. After that, at the Blue Sky Guild, our hero began to complain about the enormous amount of work he had to do, and he said all this to his annoyed former apprentice. Kwok Dabin then asked the old man about the reason why he was using Blue Sky as a vacation spot. Kwok Pilson explained that an old man like him, whose friends are either dying or have already passed away, has no one else to go to, before accusing S-Rang of slipping him an apprentice. Seeing as how he spends most of his time here, the tall one suggested that his master simply join Blue Sky, but our hero refused again, claiming that joining would severely restrict his freedom. Hunter expressed his concern over the association's silence on the Northern Lights incidents and his worry for his lone master. Park Dabin then informed the old man about the rumors going around. The old man replied that he personally looked after his needs as they were indeed friends. The tall one then clarified, stating that the rumors were true. He and he were in a relationship. As a couple? Upon hearing this, the old man exploded with anger, demanding to know who was behind such ridiculous gossip. According to the man, these rumors were created by his subordinates after they saw how much he cared for him, an outsider. Having said that, the apprentice asked the master to either join them or stop visiting for a while. The annoyed old man started to think that his age had made him an outcast, but Kwok Dabin confirmed that it had nothing to do with that. After that, Kwok Pilson made his choice and declared that he would never set foot in Blue Sky again. It was then that S-Rank informed him that the Grizzly Guild was rumored to be investigating his past. The name made the hero assume that this guild was similar to the gang of Ko Myung-hun and his men. The man confirmed the similarities between the 10th and 11th, the only difference being that their master, Seo Kwang-ho, was an unpredictable S rank due to his bad reputation. Kwok Pilsen assured the Blue Sky leader that he would be fine since he was a legendary hunter. After that, the old man withdrew. While the apprentice began to fear the worst, later that day, the hero asked if everything was in place. Both of his apprentices were present. Kim assumed that their presence was due to the appearance of the dangerous dungeon. While Li Zhonghua was gripped with anxiety, the master stated that they were not here to fight, but to unite as a team, which shocked them both. Hearing this, the shy hunter felt relieved. The old man wanted to use this opportunity to learn more about his students, realizing that he knew almost nothing about them. His students shyly agreed with him when he confirmed that rest was also an important part of their training. Hunter Kim asked what they had planned for today. After thinking for a while, the old man asked his students what the youth were doing now to pass the time, which surprised them. What youth? The S-rank hunter said that he usually went camping or just played Go. This pleased Kwok Pilsen as he saw that this board game was still popular, considering how confident he was in his own skills. But as soon as Li Zhonghua expressed how boring he found Go, the old man exploded with anger to protect his cherished game. He immediately asked his second student about his hobbies. The young man hesitated to answer. Soon after, in a comic book store, our hero found himself reading peacefully. The old man assumed that comic books were what the youth liked these days, but the boy confirmed that it was just his hobby. Conversation was kept to a minimum. While the old man pondered and read, the boy, as usual, was feeling the tension. The hero asked his apprentice about his reason for entering the world of hunters. After thinking for a while, Li Zhonghua explained how he had loved comic books since he was a kid, so seeing the hunters made him happy to see how they resembled the characters in his stories. And so he decided to become one of them himself, to live like his favorite heroes. And when he hinted that his dream was just a childish dream, the old man disagreed and surprised the guy. The protagonist confirmed that there was no sin in such a fantasy. The apprentice was shocked to hear the master call his aspirations beautiful. It was then that the protagonist was noticed by a girl, and it was none other than Park Ji-hoon. Earlier, the girl was upset when she read the comic book, realizing that it didn't make any sense. Huntress couldn't help but think of a hero with ordinary looks. His cold-blooded behavior during the raids didn't cancel the fact that she was attracted to him. As far as she was concerned, our hero felt different, because he reminded her of her past, of her dear grandfather from her childhood. And while she wondered what he might be doing now, Huntress removed herself from her friend to the washroom to freshen up. Park Ji-hoon was eager to see our hero, and that's when she saw him, in his stupid Panama. Kwok Pilsen turned around and was delighted to unexpectedly meet a sniper in such a place. When asked the reason for his presence, the old man explained that he was doing team building. This coincidence made the girl feel quite fortunate. Li Zhonghua asked our hero about his connection with the beautiful lady. Huntress Park was surprised to hear him hint that they were dating, and quickly dismissed the allegation with a smiling, blushing face. Kwok Pilsen confirmed that she was just an acquaintance. The shy guy introduced himself to the red-cheeked girl, to which she responded in a frustrated tone he didn't quite understand. It was at this point that the huntress went over to check on her friend, but found that she had company. Kwok Pilsen quickly greeted the former band member, who invited her friend to leave. Seeing that she seemed to be in a hurry, the hero waved them goodbye. Huntress Puck didn't want to break up like that, so she approached the guy and invited the three of them to join them for karaoke, saying that the more people the merrier. But just as Kwok Pilsen was about to decline to continue reading, the overexcited boy immediately agreed, believing that he thought it was an important part of being young. Before asking his senior if he minded, Hunter Kim seemed to have no objections. It wasn't long after that at karaoke, when all five of them had gotten comfortable and some were still standing. Huntress Park began to regret her invitation to karaoke specifically, but immediately she decided to change her mindset and use this chance to build a deeper connection with her liking. Our hero was then invited to sing a duet with the girl, but the old man declined, saying he had never heard the songs, so his student accepted the invitation instead. This upset Park Ji-hoon as her plan failed. She then repeated the same scheme, only this time she would sing whatever he chose. Kwok Pilsen chose a song called Bring Back My Youth and sang it with great gusto. The strange song puzzled the girl. Her friend approached her, whispering. Park Ji-hoon became alarmed when asked if she was attracted to our hero. Her face turned very red when she saw how obvious her feelings seemed to be. She then apologized for inviting the three of them and stated that Kwok Pilsen must not see her as a romantic partner. But to her surprise, the magician grabbed her hand, saying he would support and help her, much to Quack's dismay. It was at that moment that the impressive score of 100 points appeared. As Kim began to praise his master, the old man revealed that he had been asked to become a singer when he was younger, but upon realizing his reservation, assistant, then the magician caught his attention and asked him to go with her friend to the comic book store to find her lost wallet. And as soon as Li Zhonghwan, to the girl's horror, tried to offer his services, the magician suddenly kicked him under the table and cheerfully asked the old man again. While the GG looked on in disbelief, after thinking for a bit, Kwok Pilsen agreed, leaving Park Ji-hoon satisfied. And while the one with glasses cheered for her, the guy could only watch in silence. After finding the wallet, the girl thanked the protagonist, who wanted to immediately return to the others for his help. But when the surprised girl quickly declined, Quack Pilsen asked her if she needed help in another matter, making her struggle to answer. The hero then asked her what was on her mind as she began to panic, seeing that she was missing the opportunity her friend had created for her. After gathering her wits, Huntress Puck asked the protagonist if he was currently interested in anyone. Quack Pilsen confirmed with a sad expression that he used to be interested, which led the girl to assume he was talking about a failed relationship. But to her surprise, it turned out that the lady in question was dead. This caused the sniper to panic and apologize for her question, but our hero confirmed that it no longer mattered. Huntress Pack suggested that this loss was the result of tragedy, which made her think that she must have died during the raid. But in fact, the old man was talking about an elderly woman who had passed away from old age. Quack Pilsen then related her strange question to his second apprentice, which confused the girl. To her surprise, the master hinted that his apprentice had feelings for her and that they made a pretty good duet at karaoke. This caused the blushing girl to declare that she was interested in someone else, arousing the curiosity of the hero, who asked her if this sympathy was someone he knew. But just as she was about to give an answer, the red-faced girl was overwhelmed with emotion and ran to the restroom. This behavior intrigued the old man, as he just couldn't understand today's youth. Meanwhile, an awkward silence settled in the karaoke room, as only the two hunters remained. The girl tried to make small talk by stating that everyone was running late. Hunter Kim noted that his younger companion had been in the restroom too long, which bothered him, but according to the mage, it must be no big deal. She then wondered if her friend was lucky. Meanwhile, said friend seemed surprised when faced with the frozen Yong Huan. But once she assumed it was a confession and felt as if his heart was about to burst out of his chest. Excitement was replaced by fear as Zhang Huan apologized, and an ominous figure suddenly appeared behind her back. Turning around, the sniper, Park Ji-hoon, started screaming, while Lee Jong-hwan watched silently. Seeing how long it was taking, Kwok Pilsen was worried because Hunter Park had gone to the restroom half an hour ago. But then his cell phone rang, and after picking it up and saying hello, the man was shocked when the caller asked him about Huntress Puck. Kwok Pilsen demanded to know who was talking to him. This amused the caller, and he introduced himself as responsible for his girlfriend's safety, which didn't please the old man with his methods. The man then confirmed that Park Ji-hoon would remain unharmed if he obeyed. And since the hero had no choice but to agree, the kidnapper decided to send him a meeting place and confirm that he should come alone. As he hung up the phone and thought about what to do, a fire was lit in our hero's eyes. Later that night, in a secluded spot, the thugs stood around their boss, who was tired of waiting for our hero. The thug asked his boss if their target would even bother showing up. Seeing how angry the boss got after those words, the man began to panic. Suddenly, his face was violently grabbed as he was lifted off the ground and then tossed aside. The thug demanded to be called guildmaster instead of boss, as they were no longer just a gang. The master warned the others not to call him boss, as they were now a legit guild in the eyes of the association. With that, the guild boss asked his goons to lead the man away. Before taking his seat again, another subordinate of his asked him about the Northern Lights leader's words. After that, he began to reminisce. Previously in the Northern Lights Guild, Ko Myung-hoon was intrigued when his men tried to prevent someone from entering. The former gangster had broken into the guildmaster's office. It had been a while since Seo Kwang-ho had met with Ko Myung-hoon, who was unhappy with the presence of this intruder. Boss Grizzly said he came across an interesting rumor, saying that Northern Lights' boss had been defeated by a B rank, much to the surprise of the guildmaster, who remarked that Seo Kwang-ho must have nothing better to do since he had come all this way just to make fun of him. The gangster then revealed that he was only here to learn more about the B-rank prodigy. Ko Myung-hoon advised the thug not to mess with the protagonist as a sign of their old friendship. The fact that the A-rank hunter called him a friend intrigued Guildmaster Grizzly, who suddenly burst into laughter. And after a broad smile, he was determined to prove Ko Myung-hoon wrong, making him fear the worst. Returning to the present, the former gangster was snapped out of his musings. It was because of the arrival of our hero. Kwok Pilson walked inside with an impassive face. Seo Kwang-ho immediately greeted him, noting the long wait he had to endure. The old man asked directly about the young girl's whereabouts, and seeing how eager he was to see her, the gangster reassured him, stating that she was unharmed. It seemed, however, that she had not moved. This alarmed the hero, so he demanded an explanation. Seo Kwang-ho revealed that she had simply fallen asleep after taking the drug they had given her. Kwok Pilson then demanded the name of the gang and their motives. This made the gangster realize that he hadn't introduced himself yet, so he introduced himself as the leader of the Grizzly Guild, Seo Kwang-ho. That's when our hero remembered. Park Debon had once mentioned this group. Seo Kwang-ho felt flattered when our hero called him crazy, and noted the Gigi's confidence in coming to meet them alone. However, when the gangster mentioned that it was natural for the legendary hunter, the protagonist was shocked. At the end of the episode, Seo Kwang-ho said that this meant that the Grizzly Guild knew about his real identity. Seo Kwang-ho confirmed that he wouldn't do all that to attract a nameless B rank. Upon revealing the old man, the gangster expressed his amazement to see him looking like a young teenager. Kwok Pilson was even more surprised when the gangster stated that the association was also aware of his return. Seo Kwang-ho began to reflect on how powerful the hero was in his prime years, remembered how he was rumored to have the potential to lead the association, and suggested that this rumor was the reason why the association hated him. The gangster then revealed that the association had tasked him with eliminating a B-rank hunter, and seeing how strange this seemed, he did a little research that led him to discover the true identity of the young-looking man. After that, Kwok Pilson assumed that this kidnapping was actually a conspiracy to get him out of the way. But to his surprise, the man extended his hand, and then offered him a partnership. Our shocked hero couldn't understand it. Seo Kwang-ho explained that the association annoyed him because she was always trying to meddle in his affairs, so he suggested they join forces to satisfy their shared hatred. Kwok Pilson confirmed that many things were not worthy of his hatred, and that a situation in which he had been the cause of harm to a loved one was definitely not one of them. The gangster apologized for using the huntress as bait and stated that it was his way of declaring war on the association. However, Kwok Pilson was well aware that she was a necessary hostage, as his refusal was obvious. This caused the guildmaster to praise the old man for his wits. Afterward, the hero noted that the gangster was just as shameless as his former apprentice had hinted. But Seo Kwang-ho confirmed that he really wanted him as a partner. The gangster then stated that he had a surprise for the protagonist. As he approached the gang, the gangster approached the gang. The GG was completely bewildered, because it was none other than Lee Jong-hwan. Guildmaster Grizzly revealed that the young man was actually one of his men, after which he mockingly asked Kwok Pilson his opinion on this little plot twist. The man then demanded that the old man cooperate, or else Park Ji-hoon would get hurt. Kwok Pilson confirmed that he would hold a grudge forever. Now enraged, the legendary hunter decided to physically punish the guildmaster. So Kwok Pilson asked the thug to prepare, as our hero was about to rejoin the fight against a host of foes. The grizzly leader was amused that the old man was trying to punish him, noting that he had once been a better hunter. However, according to him, he had become a weakling, who was now only a B rank, which meant he had given up his position. The thug then advised the old man to get ready, as he was going to pay the price for his refusal. After that, Master Grizzly ordered his men to attack, and all the thugs came at the protagonist. But that didn't intimidate Kwok Pilson, who easily dodged the first attack. Then he noticed a thug aiming at his back, so he quickly dodged his blade, slipped behind his back, and then kicked him right in the face. Just like that, the gang member was defeated in one kick. Then Kwok Pilson looked at the people around him and asked the Grizzlies if they were done. The people around tensed up. After that, the legendary hunter finally bared his sword, because now he had a chance to counterattack, and did a good stand-up routine. And then our hero lunged at the enemy, immediately targeting the boss. However, Seo Kwang-ho remained unfazed. The thug managed to block the sword, much to our hero's surprise. Seo Kwang-ho informed his target that he was stronger than expected, hinting that his past reputation did give him credit. Pushing away the old man's blade, the thug confirmed that the past would always remain the past. That was why the 80-year-old hunter should just accept his fate and surrender. This caused Quack Pilson to ask the bastard to bite his tireless tongue. After that, the fight continued, and the two exchanged blows at an incredible rate, to the point where the thugs couldn't keep up. The fight was getting more fierce by the minute. Seo Kwang-ho, who admitted that he had underestimated the old man, attributed his incredible strength to his miraculous rejuvenation. Quack Pilson confirmed that his resentment only grew at the sight of those impeccable skills being used in such shameless ways. Gangster stated that he would now start fighting in earnest, when he unleashed his Iron Will Fist skill, and aiming directly at the protagonist. Seeing this, his thugs assured that victory was just around the corner. However, our hero was not impressed, as he easily blocked the attack, much to the bewilderment of the Grizzlies. Soon after, the gangster noticed that the old man was attacking him from above. After that, Quack Pilson finally managed to strike the guildmaster, who cried out in pain and stood in front of his opponent, who didn't even seem to be breaking a sweat. Seo Kwang-ho even started coughing up blood. Quack Pilson reprimanded him for his poor command of his own strength, despite being called an S rank, and advised him not to rely solely on his skills to attack. This made the young traitor behind remember how the old man had once scolded him for the same reason. The gangster had had enough of these impertinent lessons, so he shouted to his healers to tend to his wounds. The gang members immediately complied. Confirming that he had underestimated our hero, the man was left with no other choice but to admit that the legendary hunter was still feared. Fully healed, the guildmaster offered to continue their fight, and so, having concentrated his magical power and reaching a certain level of power, his face contorted, and the S rank lunged at our hero, confident that this time the old man wouldn't be able to parry him. However, as Quack Pilson stood unperturbed and enveloped his sword in mana, the boss was completely bewildered, seeing how he easily blocked his powerful onslaught and how he even managed to throw him back. Seeing that he was outmatched, the thug demanded to know the nature of the skill that had thrown him back. But to his surprise, the old man confirmed that he had only enhanced his sword with magic. Seo Kwang-ho couldn't believe that such a simple skill could produce such firepower, and was only more upset when the protagonist stated that the strength of a skill depended solely on its user. After that, the gangster lunged at him again, but our hero pointed out the sorry state of his blade. Seeing this, the S rank realized that the legendary hunter had been aiming at his weapon all this time. Letting go of his blades, the grizzly was trapped, and in a panic he turned to Lee Jong-hwan. The thug ordered the terrified young boy to end Park Ji-hoon's life if the old man tried anything else. The boy couldn't resist as he had no choice but to obey. After that, the gangster asked his opponent about his next move, seeing that his friend's life was at stake. And just like that, both master and apprentice had to carefully consider their next course of action. When the protagonist found himself in a difficult situation, his adversary demanded that he first let go of his sword to save the huntress Puck. Quack Pilson cast a strange look at his shamed apprentice, and so he dropped his blade and then asked the S-rank criminal if he was satisfied with that. The man confirmed that this was the level of obedience he expected, and that despite his reluctance to take his life, he would not let the young-looking man get away without a few broken bones as he lunged at him. Seeing this with a calm expression on his face, Quack Pilson quickly kicked the thug in the face with his knee, causing him to scream in pain. The hero then spun through the air before delivering a powerful kick to the man's stomach, sending him flying through the wall. That's how Seo Kwang-ho suffered some pretty serious injuries, causing him to tell the old man that his threats against the girl were not empty. When Quack Pilson stated how despicable it is for an S-rank to kidnap someone, he confirmed that he wasn't perfect, and ordered Lee Jong-hwan to cut off Huntress Park's hands to prove to the protagonist that their threats weren't a bluff. At first, the young man hesitated, and in the end, he couldn't do it. This infuriated the boss, who again insisted on his order, but he couldn't do it, which left the young man terrified. After that, the boy finally decided to give in to his fear, when he was suddenly approached by his master, who decided to remind him of the dream that had led him to become a hunter, and asked him if a life of forced crime was really what he desired. Hunter Lee began to hesitate, remembering his desire to be like his favorite comic book heroes. Seeing this, the boss became angry and demanded that he cut off Hunter Park's hands, filling him with fear again. But after gathering his courage, the boy finally decided to drop the knife. This betrayal made S-Rang very angry. After that, Seo Kwang-ho lunged at the boy, when he suddenly spotted the legendary hunter behind him. Quack Pilson slammed the thug's head into the ground with a swift flying kick, leaving him screaming in pain. After that, the guildmaster in front of his subordinates could no longer fight, and he had no choice but to accept Quack Pilson's victory, stating that he would give him what he wanted in exchange for his life. Thug confirmed that he never intended to take the hero's life. However, Quack Pilson claimed that Thug would not stop his evil deeds just because he was asked to, seeing that he only responded to physical pain. This merciless sight frightened the Grizzly Guild, with their boss claiming that it wouldn't be necessary since he had already given up. Ignoring his words, Seo Kwang-ho insisted that he was going to let him live. The man then began to beg for mercy, firmly stating that he would never bother the old man again. Fear filled his soul as the hero swung to strike, but the blade passed within a hair's breadth of him and hit the ground. After that, Seo Kwang-ho fainted from pure fear. Quack Pilson then turned to his minions and asked them if they still had a problem with him. However, no one dared to answer. In the protagonist's eyes, they all looked like mindless idiots. Quack Pilson then ordered the men to get their boss out of his sight if they didn't want to continue fighting. Lee Jong-hwan was standing silently when he suddenly noticed an old man approaching him. Ashamed, who didn't dare call Quack Pilson his master, apologized for deceiving him. The old man, however, made no reply and raised his fist. But when the boy expected the worst, Quack Pilson smiled slightly and, patting his apprentice on the shoulder, confirmed that he should address him as master. The young man was shocked to see that the old man had forgiven him after all he had done. Quack Pilson explained that no one is sinless and that only those who cannot admit or see their mistakes are scolded. He wanted to say something else. GH recalled how Lee Jong-hwan once mentioned his dream of becoming like comic book heroes. The protagonist revealed that in the one he read, the protagonist gained strength after overcoming hardships, and that his student closely resembled this so-called hero. These sincere words deeply touched Lee Jong-hwan. Afterward, the old man stated that they should take Hunter Park and leave. Hunter Lee was left pondering about everything that had just happened. A while later, an annoyed Ko Young-hoon asked about the reason for this unexpected encounter. The hero then confirmed that he obviously wanted to talk to him before asking the man if he had any complaints about it. The man denied and confirmed that he was simply intrigued by the fact that Quack Pilson was using the Grizzlies' guild grounds as their meeting place. Stepping inside, Ko Young-hoon was completely shocked to see the members of the Grizzly Guild greeting our hero. The former thug silently followed him. He couldn't understand why the Grizzly Guild members were greeting our hero like that, which made him somewhat suspicious. So he decided to ask Quack Pilson if he had joined the Grizzly Guild, but the old man confirmed that he would never belong to such a group, and then asked the Northern Lights leader to silently follow him. Ko Young-hoon had a vague guess as to what would happen next, when the young man carelessly entered the office, only to find someone hiding in fear behind the desk. It was none other than the S-ranked hunter in charge of this guild. Seeing this, the old man became angry and asked the young man to stand firm. Ko Young-hoon was puzzled, as the imposing man apologized like a coward. The 11th Guildmaster couldn't believe it. As the young man was about to leave, the old man said that even though Seo Kwang-ho was the weakest of the S ranks, he was still an impressive hunter. But our hero carelessly scolded him for hiding despite his enormous size. Ko Young-hoon demanded an explanation. Quack Pilson then stated that he had physically punished the gangster, that he had no idea why the latter was acting like that, and that he was currently unable to lead his guild. Ko Young-hoon agreed. The old man then remembered how the latter had once said that he wanted his guild to rise in the rankings, so he had a proposal for him. The Northern Radiance leader was puzzled when he was asked to absorb the Grizzly Guild. According to our hero, Northern Lights will gain a lot of power from this, despite the fact that Seo Kwang-ho is the leader of Grizzly. However, Ko Young-hoon didn't think it was right for his guild to absorb one that was superior to theirs in rank, which the protagonist found ironic considering how he had forced hunters to join the guild by force not too long ago, then turned to the current leader and asked if he had any objections. A startled S rank confirmed that he had no problem with the takeover and was even willing to leave the hunting world if need be. However, Quack Pilson said that he should stay as the guild needed S-rank members, to which the latter quickly agreed. The gangster looked pitiful in Ko Young-hoon's eyes. After receiving the current master's consent, the man was asked about his own decision. Ko Young-hoon was curious as to why he was chosen, despite the past disagreements between them. Our hero then recalled that he was building a team to overthrow the association. Quack Pilson revealed that he would start by forcing the 11th guild to absorb the 10th guild and turn them into the first guild. This shocked the man. The old man then reminded him that his dream was to create a better guild. After that, Ko Young-hoon assumed that the protagonist was asking him to become his servant. However, our hero explained that this was not the case as he just wanted to help. Ko Young-hoon found this ridiculous offer quite tempting, so he made his choice. The Northern Lights leader agreed to absorb the Grizzly Guild, which pleased the old man. It was at this moment that a man burst into the room to report an urgent matter. According to him, the association's envoy had returned to see Seo Kwang-ho. This intrigued our hero. It was then that the door opened. After checking out the guildmaster, Yoon Do-kyung apologized for his sudden visit. Pulling himself together, Seo Kwang-ho demanded to know the reason for this unexpected visit, leaving him to ponder. Earlier, our hero had explained that they would hide in the next room while the guildmaster met with the association's envoy. The man was startled when the 80-year-old man warned him not to behave suspiciously. Returning to the present, the tall one demanded to know the reason for Yoon Do-kyung's presence. The man revealed that he was here for the latest news about the mission given to the Grizzly Guild, seeing how passionate his superiors were about the matter. But then he was quite intrigued to see the guildmaster sigh in relief. Seo Kwang-ho asked the leader of the major crimes group about the reason for the Hunter Association's obsession with this particular B rank. The man grinned, before confirming that he had no reason to justify their actions to him. Yoon Do-kyung then stated that the man had to blindly obey in order to maintain his guild's ranking. And while the guildmaster realized that he was being threatened, the man claimed that it was just a job. Having clearly delivered his message, the leader of major crimes decided to leave. But before leaving the room, he confirmed that he expected good results from the Grizzly Guild, leaving its leader extremely annoyed. But the irritation was quickly replaced with fear when Kwak Pilson suddenly appeared to see if the man had left. The old man then praised the S-rank hunter for his unexpected acting ability. Kwak Pilson then asked, after showing his aura, if Seo Kwang-ho was planning to betray them in the end. The S-rank hunter, who immediately took the joke as a threat, firmly denied any intention of stabbing them in the back. Kwak Pilson then pointed out that the association has no honor as it only cares about the outcome, regardless of the method, even conflicts between hunters for their own benefit. It made him realize that the organization that once protected the Hunter Association would never be able to protect the hunters themselves, now for profit. Seeing this, the guildmaster pondered. Pondering about our hero's true identity, seeing that the association wanted to kill him at any cost. After that, the old man made a decision. Kwak Pilson decided to act and finally counterattack. Later that day, in a coffee shop, our hero sat face-to-face with Lee Jong-hwan. Kwak Pilson noted that his previous apprentice had left the world of hunting. The boy confirmed that after reflection, he realized that he wasn't cut out for the life of a hunter. However, when asked about his future plans, the boy could hardly answer. Later that day, at the TV station building, the boy was very nervous. Lee Jong-hwan was anxious as usual, so the man calmed him down by confirming that his identity would be kept secret, then asked him to relax and behave naturally on air, and said the boy should just answer their questions. After that, the taping was about to begin. Lee Jong-hwan found himself in the news studio. The reporter explained to the viewers that according to recent reports, some guilds formed by many hunters were involved in illegal activities, and that they have a special guest today. A masked Lee Jong-hwan greeted the audience. The reporter asked the young man if he was indeed once part of a popular guild, which he confirmed. And when asked about the guild's crimes, the boy admitted that their leader abused civilians and forced some people to sign slave contracts. But just as he was about to mention his boss's latest crime, there was a sudden sound. It intrigued the camera crew, and one of them decided to go check it out. The sound came from behind the door. As the man was about to open it, the door was suddenly kicked open by an angry S-rank hunter. Seo Kwang-ho was very angry that this was being filmed in secret. The man demanded to know what was going on. But as soon as he tried to calm the hunter down by saying that they were live on air, he was suddenly grabbed by the collar. Strank confirmed that he didn't care and asked the man if he knew who he was. He then threatened the man to bring one person to him or else he would know his wrath. This confused the civilian, so the thug clarified, stating that he was here for his former gang member. However, while the man tried to feign confusion, his eyes mistakenly glanced toward the door. This led the thug to assume he was hiding behind it, so he rushed inside looking for Lee Jong-hwan. But to his surprise, all he met was emptiness. He looked around, but still there was no one. Seo Kwang-ho shouted in great anger for Lee Jong-hwan to come out of his hiding place. But immediately, someone tried to stop him. The man confirmed that he didn't expect to see S-rank here. It was none other than Yoon Do-kyung. The gangster then found himself surrounded. The confused man assumed that they were looking for a fight. Yun then reminded him that they were the major crimes team and that an anonymous source had tipped them off about the troubled hunter. Seo Kwang-ho explained that he was here to deal with one of his former men who had tried to solve his crimes on the air. The group leader confirmed that his exposed behavior was a problem, so they couldn't turn a blind eye to it. However, to his shock, the guildmaster stated that Lee Jong-hwan knew about the secret deal between them. Yoon Do-kyung reprimanded S-Rang for his barbaric methods, which disappointed him. However, the angry hunter stated that it was all because the association kept assigning him their dirty work. The guy realized that there was nothing more he could do in this situation. Yoon Do-kyung now had to find the young man, and when asked what his fate would be after finding him, he stated that they should eliminate him, so as not to leave any evidence behind. Kill him at once. It was at this moment that the men noticed that the guildmaster was no longer standing behind them. Yoon Do-kyung ordered his men to chase after Seo Kwang-ho, who he assumed was trying to escape. The thug confirmed he would be the one to kill Lee Jong-hwan. The group leader urged his men to track down the boy as well. This made him very angry. Meanwhile, the young man in question hid in the dark. Assuming that he was out of sight, the former hunter began to wonder about Kwok Pilson's whereabouts. Then Lee Jong-hwan remembered what had happened. At the coffee shop, when his master asked about his future plans, the boy explained that the transition was quite difficult for someone like him who was dedicated to becoming a hunter. It made the young boy feel like he was just blaming his failures on the old man. Lee Jong-hwan then asked Kwok Pilson about the reason for their meeting. The hero explained that he was here to ask a favor, sparking the boy's curiosity. Returning to the present, Lee Jong-hwan wished his master would arrive sooner, as he had no idea what to do next after executing the old man's plan. It was then that one of the members tried to use his katana to fight him. But as soon as he noticed it, there was the sound of steel clashing. The master arrived just in time to protect his apprentice. The young man was overjoyed at the old man's arrival, praising him for his good work. The hero assured the boy that he had nothing to fear since he was here. The S-rank hunter began shouting for his target. When asked if the young man had indeed escaped this way, the hunter confirmed. The group leader got upset and confirmed that he didn't have time in vain. Seo Kwang-ho then stated that it was human nature to make mistakes. After that, the annoying one ordered his men to leave the building. When suddenly a flying table flew within a hair's breadth of him, the culprit was none other than S-rank, who was determined to keep them inside. The confident hunter was then terrified when he was asked to make the association waste time. His fear of Kwak Pilson immediately made him agree. Returning to the present, S-rank was annoyed as he regretted ignoring Ko Young-hoon's advice. Yoon Do-kyung then pointed out that this action would make him an enemy of the association. The S-rank hunter then revealed that there was a person he feared more than the hunter's organization. Having said that, the leader of the serious crime group decided to get rid of him earlier than planned. Seo Kwang-ho was once again annoyed since no one had taken him seriously lately, so after each of them confessed their hatred for the other. Right from the first time they saw each other, they hated each other. The gangster found himself surrounded by Yoon Do-kyung's forces, and he launched an attack. Seo Kwang-ho confirmed that their numbers were too small to handle him, as he used his powerful fist to create a defensive shockwave. However, the group leader found this confidence to be hubris, when the gangster became entangled in magical chains. The S-rank hunter was shocked to learn that he was indeed trapped by this skill. Yoon Do-kyung then revealed that the reason he was promoted to the leader of the major crimes group was because that he possessed a unique skill that could hold back even the strongest hunters. According to the man, many S-ranks fell for his slow chains because they were too proud to dodge them. And so he signaled his men, tightening the chains on the one, who cried out in pain. After that, the Grizzly Guild leader fell to his knees. The guild leader confirmed that even the weak could defeat the strong, if they can take them by surprise. After that, the man took his subordinate's katana and ordered him to finish off Seo Kwang-ho. But just as he was about to deliver the killing blow, he noticed a hero attacking him from behind. It was none other than Kwok Pilson, whom he managed to block at the last second. After that, Yoon Do-kyung tried to increase the distance. The man demanded to know the reason for the legendary hunter's presence. Kwok Pilson stated that there was no reason to justify his absence. This made the leader of the major crimes team realize that it was the protagonist who had pushed Seo Kwang-ho into betrayal. Kwok Pilson demanded to know who ordered his execution, to which Yoon Do-kyung refused to answer. When a subordinate asked him about the plan, the man suggested that they had some hope since the S-rank hunter was immobilized. So he ordered an attack. The first henchman readied his dagger and launched it right into our hero. But the GG managed to capture this Morgenstern in chains. His group leader was in a difficult situation. The guy with the glasses was in shock. He pulled the bastard to him and met him with a nice knee to the face. Now it was time for the ones that were left. The bastard started shouting to his men to treat the enemy as S-ranks. All the men rushed at the protagonist, but Quack Pilsen remained sealed, bursting through them, leaving a trail of aura and blood behind him. Finally, he came to a stop. None of the men could even scratch the legendary hunter. The scene changed. At the Hunters Association meeting, the topic of discussion was announced. Hunter Quack Pilsen. A leaked conversation between Quack Pilsen and the head of the Major Crimes Unit excited the public. The association decided to portray the incident as Commander Yoon's personal mistake. Srank Huntress Yoo So-young grudgingly recalled the trouble Yoon had caused. The diplomat opposite her questioned the credibility of the information about Quack Pilsen's sudden rejuvenation. The girl confirmed the investigation data despite the unusual situation. Old diplomats immediately recognized Quack Pilsen's ability to rejuvenate as extremely interesting. Shrank remarked that even he was envious of such a mysterious and valuable ability. Yoo So-young watched with disdain as the elders greedily coveted their lost youth. Someone suddenly asked loudly about some huge freak. The information about Seo Guangcho crossing over to Quack Pilsen's side was confirmed. The old man irritably noted Seo Guangcho's tendency to cause trouble, regretted the late neutralization of Seo Guangcho, and questioned the reasons for Quack Pilsen's anonymity. Concerns were expressed about Quack Pilsen's possible return to erratic behavior. A decision was made to expedite finding out the motives behind Quack Pilsen's sudden activity. Someone asked, why did he live so quietly for so many years and then become a star all at once? It was suggested that the rejuvenation caused an uncontrollable surge of strength in the hunter. Suddenly, the girl had a serious question, and she inquired about Quack Pilsen's potential bid to head the association. The counselor pressed the association president to deal with the threat immediately. All members turned to association president Lim Taewon for a final decision on the situation. He remained silent. Lim Taewon urged caution as everyone's attention was directed to the situation, and to meticulously study Quack Pilsen's plans before acting. The meeting agreed to follow the instructions of the association president. The girl reminded that the president knows Quack Pilsen best because of their past work together. Suddenly, a tense silence hung in the meeting room. The president was silently and quietly looking around at everyone around him. The girl was smiling, happy with the impression she had made, and Lim was quietly and calculatingly pondering the situation. The matter came to the Blue Sky Guild. The guild representative Chang Shun reported the association's plans to blame it on Commander Yoon. The old man sharply condemned the association's actions, calling them shameless. There was a suggestion from the hunter to immediately reveal Quack Pilsen's identity and the truth of the incident. The old man sat and thought a little about his proposal. Quack Pilsen rejected the idea, stating the futility of revealing the identity of the forgotten hunter. The associate insisted that Quack Pilsen was no ordinary hunter and that the association controlled the media. Quack Pilsen admitted that he expected such a reaction from the association, but believes in other chances. The associate expressed shame at what was going on behind his back without his knowledge. Just then, the old man thanked his former student for his constant concern despite his busyness. The tall one smiled, for he had finally earned the praise. The newcomer to the meeting politely inquired about the reason for his summons. They were the former leaders of the Rogue and Grizzly guilds, in costume, but not happy. Quack Pilsen parried the question sharply, stating the importance of his message. The meeting attendee fearfully assured that he had no objection to the challenge. The man admitted that he had expected unconventionality from the man, but was still surprised. The attendees were amazed to find that the man in front of them was indeed the old Quack Pilsen. It became clear why Park Seok-cheon had a special respect for this man. Quack Pilsen announced his intention to create a new organization to oversee the association. A meeting attendee asked about the specific format of Quack Pilsen's intended force. Quack Pilsen described the new structure as a containment tool for an out-of-control association. He explicitly referred to the organization as a leash on the association's brazen figures. An associate assessed the plan as characteristic of Quack Pilsen, but GH warned of a violent backlash. Quack Pilsen warned of the risks of open hostility with the association and refused to coerce allies. He gave the option of refusing to participate in a dangerous enterprise right now. The associate firmly promised to follow Quack Pilsen as he had 10 years before. He offered his assistance in any action necessary to carry out the plan. Kwok Pilson approved of his associate's loyalty and returned to the topic of creating a new force. Suddenly, a rogue entered their conversation. He revealed that he had long ago begun preparations for this move, and he too had expressed a desire to help Kwok Pilson. The former Grizzly leader stated his long-standing disgrace in the association and the need for cautious action. There was a question about the specific next steps of Kwok Pilson's plan. It was now time for the first step of the plan to be explained. GH pointed his finger at the full-figured thug, and then Kwok Pilson transparently hinted at the temporary use of a certain man for his own purposes. The boar was shocked that it was him. The scene shifted, an ordinary field. Suddenly a portal opened. Some gawker had already discovered it, and stood there wondering what it was. In another location, a villager warned the headman about the danger of an uncontrolled gate. The headman was puzzled by the lack of hunters a week after the gate appeared. It was explained to him that low-ranking gates in the hinterland do not attract hunters due to lack of profit. The headman whispered quietly to himself, "Oh shit." Suddenly, a resident came running up to them, relieved to hear the news that the hunters from Seoul had arrived. They were shocked. This is really the middle of nowhere. One of the arriving hunters reluctantly expressed dissatisfaction with his assignment. It was a boar. His partner made a remark about the need to hide his displeasure and keep his expression. The collective farmers looked at this and were shocked. What kind of moralizing was going on here? The boar coughed before speaking. In the back of his mind, he was cursing all of this. After all, now he has to embarrass himself here. His superhero costume a ribbon, he now stood there like a good guy calming down the residents. The scene changed to a beautiful landscape. People were discussing the rumors. There was a question about a rumor about an S-rank clearing unprofitable dungeons. Clarification that it was about forgotten dungeons with no financial gain. They probably know this guy. Puzzlement is expressed as to who would even engage in such activity. A name is given, S-rank Seo Guangho. The listener is shocked at his volunteerism. Seo Guangho theatrically announced the protection of citizens while hiding his irritation. A child questioned the S-rank status of a man in the outback. The children openly accused the hunter of lying, not believing his ranking. Seo Guangho exploded with anger over the child's disobedience, but he was immediately besieged by GG, who ordered him to follow himself. For now they were going to the B-rank dungeon, ignoring the displeasure. And in a moment they were already face-to-face with the new portal. The GG checked the group's readiness to enter the dungeon. C-rank Hunter Kim expressed doubts about his participation in the B-rank dungeon. Clarification: we are talking about Hunter Kim Taejung. We went back to the guild office to see the tall one. Kwa confirmed his intention to take Taejun with him. They need to go on raids. He justified the decision with the potential of the C-rank despite the current level. Again, he requested permission to train Daejun during the raids. The fellow is confident that Daejun will accept mentoring. The fellow confirmed the recruitment and has now set the record straight. Kim is coming with him. The associate agreed, expressing surprise at the mentor's personality. He acknowledged the shock of GH's disclosure of his master. Seo Guangho warned Daejun, "If you interfere, I will leave you to your fate." GG reacted sharply to a disapproving look from one of his mentees. Kwok threatened to hold Seo responsible for Taejun's safety. Hunter resented the need for raids in the rural wilderness. He was supported by his partner, perplexed by the choice of unprofitable dungeons. Kwok reminded him that this was an attempt to rectify their terrible reputation. He reasoned that the association would not forgive a bad image with the populace. His partner skeptically remarked that no one would notice their efforts. The fellow admitted that change takes time, but insisted on action. He emphasized the importance of helping those who had not received support from others. Hunter assumed that the locals would remember their help, but the guy was still thinking about the disadvantage, and the GH ordered him to shut up and work. GH gave the command to start the raid in the dungeon, and now the raid was officially announced to start. They began to enter the portal, and in a couple of seconds they were already in the jungle, and they were walking through a dense forest. Seo Guangho suddenly noticed something and looked up, and in front of him he saw an angry and rabid monkey, which was already ready to attack. So the boy drew his blades, and he rushed towards them himself. And then he chopped all the other pieces in the air. Kim was shocked by this, so he asked his mentee why he was so distracted. He confessed that he was pondering the power of an S-rank hunter. Kwok told him to learn by observing, recognizing his skills despite his temper. Seo stood and listened to this. He was hurt and angry. He demanded help in battle, resenting the team's inaction. Seo Guangho accused the group of being the only one fighting in the dungeon. Tajun inquired about Seo Guangho and Kwak's relationship. Seo Guangho explained that the latter was being punished for making a serious mistake in front of him. He clarified that forgiveness depended on the future actions of the guilty party. Seo Guangho pondered in despair about how his life had turned out. The scene changed. Someone was standing and sweat was pouring off his face in streams. It was Tajun, who recognized the difficulty of fighting B-rank monsters for his level. Kwak noted that the apprentice had exceeded expectations and was close to B-rank level. Seo indignantly distracted them from their praise, pointing to the mountain of monkey corpses and reminding them of his primary role in the battle. GG sharply condemned Seo's comparison to Dai Jung, calling it a subordinate's duty. Suddenly, a loud sound distracted them all, for from somewhere a large monkey was already climbing, which was very huge and had the tongue of a snake. The guys were shocked. The discovery of the dungeon boss caused them to prepare for the final battle. The monkey immediately rushed to attack, but still sat firmly on the branch, and then threw some kind of weapon or thing at the protagonist, and that throw would be deadly. Immediately, the protagonist instructed Seo to deliver a finishing blow to the target. The apprentice remarked sarcastically about the excessive strain from his mentor. He promised to quickly remove the threat for a speedy exit, but suddenly stopped in front of the monkey and its tail. He was shocked. So much traveled for nothing? Seo had activated his best abilities, and now his aura had captured even the monkey. And also the guy managed to slash it a bit. The monster immediately roared in pain. Seo Guangho jumped higher and was ready to throw a couple more punches. In flight, he coldly urged the monster to surrender without resistance. The snake monkey's face was dumbfounded. He gave a couple slashes with his swords again, and he succeeded. The instant defeat of the S-rank boss shocked the watching hunters. Kim marveled at his strength. Kwak inquired about the usefulness of the demonstration to Da Young. The man admitted that the speed of the attack interfered with analyzing the technique. Seo Guangho reassured his student, promising future opportunities to study the techniques. Seo again resented his constant role as the primary enforcer of difficult tasks. There was a question about the delayed system notification of dungeon clearing. The lack of change after defeating the boss was perplexing and disturbing. They turned around and found something. The discovery of the anomaly raised questions about the nature of the unidentified object. The protagonist had a hunch about the appearance of a gate within the current gate. Kim and the GH were shocked. The team stated complete unfamiliarity with the observed phenomenon. It became clear that the anomaly was not an exit from the dungeon. Kwak ordered Taijin to retreat the previous way. He announced to further investigate the gate with Seo, and despite Taejun's objections, he ordered him to stay where he was. Pilsen warned of the unpredictable dangers beyond the gate. He emphasized that Taejun could not handle the threats of the abnormal zone, and instructed Taejun to leave the dungeon and inform Park Seok-jong of the situation. Seo expressed his displeasure at his opinion being ignored in decision-making. GH aggressively inquired about the boar's disagreement. Kim stood in sadness, recognizing his uselessness in the depths of the anomaly, and confirmed understanding of the retreat order. Finally, Kwak Pilsen was satisfied and turned back to the portal. GH put Daejung in charge of rear cover. Kim agreed, and GH jumped into the portal right after pushing the boar in there. Daejun wished the team caution before they went into the depths. The scene switched to the dungeon. The monkey was once again furious and hit the ground hard, almost hitting the boar, who in return tried to hit her with his blades. He flew down and thought, she's really pissing him off. And he struck again, tried to slash. Seo Guanho commented irritably on the monster's continuous attacks and looked at the corpse of the monkey. And then another monkey came at him from behind, which in one move he sliced its head open, saving the boar's life, and then calmly landed next to the man and the monkey's body. The boar strongly condemned the abnormal properties of the dungeon. After all, the appearance of bosses from the previous B-rank dungeon inside the anomaly had been discovered. The disappearance of the exit and the inability to determine rank created a death trap. The GG looked at all of this too and realized they were in danger, and the B-rankers wouldn't get out of here alive. CO asked GH, would they definitely get out if they killed the boss? The guy said, you don't know. Then the next question came up. What kind of dungeon are they in anyway? Suddenly asked Seo about his experience as a hunter to gauge his experience, which surprised him. He thought for a moment and said probably about 5 years ago. Gigi thought that measuring dungeon ranks only became possible 5 to 6 years ago. He assumed that even S ranks were unfamiliar with dungeons without a certain level. Hunter reminded him that any development is possible in dungeons. The GG was nostalgic at the unexpected challenge of an anomaly. Suddenly, they were distracted by a loud sound. It was a crowd of similar monkeys with snake tongues. Seo was terrified. They kept coming and coming. He looked questioningly at the protagonist. Suddenly, a shadow covered them both. It was a huge bat-like monster, with glowing eyes and big fangs. He sat on a hillock, and as if he was the leader of a pack of monkeys. The discovery of the large monster gave rise to speculation about the dungeon boss. The GG refused to speculate on the nature of the creature. Suddenly, the huge creature noticed them, and then began beeping very loudly on some peculiar frequencies. Kwok offered to find out the status of the enemy only in a direct confrontation. At the monster's shout, all the monkeys turned around and directed their gazes at the heroes. And after a moment, they had already swarmed to kill them. Srank challenged the monsters, urging them to attack at the same time. GG warned Seo Guangho to be careful, receiving a confident agreement, and the heroes rushed towards the creatures. Seo armed himself with blades and began chopping down the monkeys. GH was doing the same thing. Together they crumbled piles of monsters into mincemeat. Seo Guangho mockingly questioned his opponent's abilities. The boss monster looked at this and spread its wings. In the next instant, the huge bat soared into the air. Already in the sky, it was gathering strength for its attack. And in a flash, it released a huge amount of fire magic at the heroes. Everyone, including even the monkeys, were surprised by the fire breath and immediately ran away from the explosion. GG noted that the creature attacked indiscriminately, destroying its own. It flew even higher. Destroying the smaller monsters made the fight easier, but there was still the problem of the flying enemy. GG decided to look around. Immediately, he began to make an impromptu solution. Seo asked about his partner's unusual actions. He suggested using the object as a slingshot, which was confirmed by the protagonist, and immediately launched the huge log forward with the speed of a bullet. The mouse was shocked, and such a spear quickly pierced it, causing massive damage. The beast roared in pain. Seo was shocked by what he saw, asking about hidden range skills. Kwok explained that he simply threw the object with maximum force. Seo was amazed at Pilson's physical abilities, comparing them to the monsters. The enraged monster showing a sudden burst of aggression. Seo thought that the beast was definitely furious now. Immediately, the boss monster lunged at them. The GH mocked the monster's tactical error of depriving himself of the advantage of flight. It tried to grab the protagonist with its claws. And Kwok stood with a smile, for everything was going according to his plan. At this time outside the portal, the tall one inquired about the time Kwok Pilson was inside the gate. Kim reported a 6-hour wait, and the lad expressed his anxious forebodings. He questioned the appropriateness of passively waiting at the closed gate. Suddenly, Kim noticed something. The gate was observed to shrink as a sign of successful completion of the dungeon. The hunter was relieved to attribute this result to the actions of Kwok Pilson. Initial relief was replaced by dismay at the almost complete closure of the gate. Kwok Pilson and Seo Guanho were confirmed absent among the hunters who had come out. The apprentice was shocked. Where was the old man? Kim recorded the critical moment of the complete disappearance of the dungeon gate. Dejin expressed shock at the unexpected development after the portal closed. A look of horror appeared on his face. The tall one immediately wondered about the events inside the dungeon and the fate of the hunters. The scene moved forward some time. The tall one was still standing on the track, looking at the site of the vanished portal. Kim had discovered the lack of signals from Kwok Pilson and Seo Guanho after the gate had closed. This saddened the man. Immediately, a command was given to redo a thorough search for any trace of the missing hunters. The hunter in the white suit expressed bewilderment and worry about the fate of the disappeared, who continued to fight the mouse in this hellhole. We moved back a few minutes. The flying thing started screaming. Then it attacked the heroes. GH activated the power in his sword and said that the slaughter was starting again. The claws of the flying creature were already near his face, but he immediately did the trick and delivered a crushing blow with his sword at the beast. And slicing into 2 pieces, the boss's body fell to the ground. The relief of the end of the battle was replaced by the question of the end of their journey. The end of the battle stage was confirmed with an expression of fatigue. A rebuke of inaction to the watching S rank was sounded. The S rank justified non-intervention by the sufficiency of the young hunter's strength. Suddenly, someone approached from behind and started growling. It was some kind of monster cat that hissed and growled at the heroes. The appearance of a new type of monster caused shock and confusion. Doubt arose whether the previous monster was the true boss. Once again, a shadow from above the monster covered them. And they were also joined by a toad monster. The hunter expressed annoyance at the incessant threats. Lack of experience with such unpredictable dungeons was recognized. The cat monster began to growl even louder, and the toad was making its trademark vomiting noises. The hunter regretted the decision to enter the anomaly at the sight of the new wave, and the creatures immediately pounced on the protagonist. Immediately, the monsters started biting each other. Observers are shocked by the sudden internecine battle between the monsters. Total incomprehensibility of what is going on inside the dungeon. The appearance of a strange sound increased the tension and bewilderment. He couldn't open his ears. He would lose his membranes. Seo could no longer hold himself up and began to scream. Hunter felt an unexpected change in his own body. The system alert confirmed the successful clearing of the dungeon. The distribution of rewards, including a special blessing, was announced. A specific blessing was issued: immunity to the cold. Starting to get sucked into the system, and so did the protagonist. Now there's no one left in the hell dimension, and the landscape changed to a snowy desert. A guy was walking through the snow in sneakers. Quack Pilson found himself in an unknown place after leaving the dungeon. It was strange. He noted the absence of Seo Guanho and an unexplained immunity to the cold. The boy assumed that the blessing he had received suited his needs. He questioned the coincidence of such a coincidence. Quack Pilson pondered the nature of the blessing in the face of a new threat. A suggestion arose about possibly being inside another dungeon. He was attacked by some hairy yeti, but the hunter quickly punched him in the jaw and calmed him down. Calmed it so much that the Bigfoot fell to the ground asleep. The hunter rated the monster's level as low. Suddenly, he heard some incomprehensible muttering. The discovery of a human voice caused surprise. He walked further closer to the forest and peeked out from behind a tree and looked ahead. A group of people were standing near a pile of yeti and talking incomprehensibly, but it could be seen that two girls were arguing heavily. The foreign speech raised questions in the protagonist about the nationality of the speakers. Quack Pilson assumed an encounter with foreign hunters. Suddenly, they were attacked, and one of the girls fended off a blow with her gun. A member of the foreign team warned the leader of the danger of the situation. The guy watched and realized it was quite dangerous. The blonde girl was standing in front of the yeti. All of a sudden, she hit the monster fast and hard with her shotgun. But suddenly, the yeti didn't feel it and pounced on the girl, who was shocked by the situation. Suddenly, there was a clang of metal. Someone struck with a sword. It was Gigi, who jumped in and with one blow cut off the monster's arm. With this action, he saved the girl. He stood between the girl and the monster and told her that he was ready to give his help. The girl was shocked because in front of her was an Asian man. She asked him who he was. Quack Pilson did not understand her and demanded an explanation in an unfamiliar language. He insisted on speaking in Korean. The foreigners reacted with surprise at the mention of Korea. Bewilderment was expressed at the appearance of a Korean hunter in the area. Quack Pilson reacted irritably to the behavior of the foreigners. He condemned their inaction during his participation in the battle. The foreign agent suggested that the leader focus on the monsters until the circumstances are clarified. The girl leader said that yes, that's right. Monsters are a priority. She turned to the GG and said it was okay. The leader girl ordered her entire squad to help this guy. The guy got excited because now their alliance was starting to make sense. He ordered everyone around him to be very careful. The monster is too dangerous. After the battle, people stood by the corpses of the hairy monsters. A question was heard from the leaderess about the condition of the team. It was confirmed that there were no injuries, but raised the question of how to proceed with this guy. Clarification on the fate of the Korean hunter prompted an appeal to Quack Pilson. Main Blonde asked him a direct question about trespassing in a restricted area. Quack Pilson stated the language barrier and the impossibility of understanding. He doesn't know their language. He insisted on communicating in Korean, while the leader was frustrated at the futility of trying. The decision was made not to leave the suspicious Korean in the danger zone. She approached him and offered the option of a safe exit on the condition of following with the group. Quack Pilson thought they had asked him to help clean up the dungeon, and he agreed, saying he would easily help them. There was a question of gratitude from the Korean hunter. The girl deferred gratitude until the successful completion of the mission. She encouraged everyone to focus on the current stage of the dungeon. The guy noted the strong fighting spirit of the group members. After a while, they walked further through the snowy desert. They discovered some kind of cave, and in it, with the help of special equipment, was found the direction to the lair of the dungeon boss. The leader thanked the girl. Surprise immediately appeared at Quack Pilson 6 because he was not used to such a precise definition of the target. The sudden aggression of one of the huntresses raised questions about her motives, and the leader immediately made an attempt to calm the angry Anna down. The girl's apology was accompanied by an appeal to the Korean hunter. The foreigner warned of the distrust of Kwok Pilsen, despite the joint movement. There was a threat of immediate elimination at the slightest suspicious action, a clear warning of elimination, understood by the hunter without translation. Kwok Pilsen reiterated a cautious demeanor. The aliens noted his understanding of the seriousness of the warning. The team leader stopped talking and called for alert. A repeated warning to remain vigilant was sounded for the entire group. All members of the all-female squad agreed. The GG alone stood dumbfounded. Just then, the leaderess requested information on the dungeon boss's reaction. Confirmation of the target's proximity with an expression of alarm about the anomaly. A disturbing lack of the usual signs of monsters was noted. The guy was shocked. A repeated order to exercise caution when advancing was already sounded by the protagonist. The leader didn't understand what he meant. Immediately, the ground began to shake violently. The leader was shocked because the ground beneath her began to crack from the earthquake. The girl gave an emergency warning about falling into a hidden abyss. And when the ground finally cracked, the boy and everyone else fell into it. Everyone was shocked. And then the chasm closed quickly. The leader was doing a status check on the team after landing in the underground cavity. She turned around and was shocked at where they had been thrown. A fall from a height and the discovery of a hidden space was stated. Suddenly, the girl felt someone coming up from behind her. It was a huge one that shadowed her. Everyone was shocked because their leader was in mortal danger. And the Bigfoot took a swing at the girl. His paw hit the ground with a thud. Everyone around them was in shock. Sasquatch just stared at what was happening. Then something really surprised him. And if you look closely, you could see that the girl pulled his fist away. It was very hard for her to do that. She had burned her teeth. It even amused Bigfoot a little. And he decided to keep pushing the girl with renewed vigor, who was giving it 100%. One of the group members rushed to support the leader in the fight. She fired a couple of flaming arrows. The other huntress was already on top and swung to destroy the enemy. They landed many blows all over the monster's body, but unfortunately for them, it didn't go the way they thought it would. The monster didn't care. It only grinned again as it continued to crush the poor leader of the hunter squad. The girls finally realized that their ways could not defeat the monster. The despair of not being able to free herself from the monster's grip on the girl was increasing. Mortal fear at the real threat to life from the unknown creature. Kwok Pilsen immediately appeared behind the beast's back and requested permission to neutralize the threatening monster. The hunter confirmed the critical danger of the situation. The team members did not understand the Korean hunter's intentions due to the language barrier. Kwok Pilsen interpreted the silence as consent for his actions. The hunter reacted sharply to his sudden movement towards the monster. Suddenly, the monster glowed with a blue aura, and the guy immediately activated his own. Kwok Pilsen suggested to end the confrontation with the threat very quickly. At the same time in the Snow City, the military man stood in front of the portal and thought about the progressive closing the gate, causing a question about the time of Angela's absence. The 96-hour absence of a team member from the dungeon has been confirmed. Concerns were raised about the failure of the raid due to the prolonged operation. And then the beginning of the process of closing the dungeon gate was discovered. There was a question about the success of the team's operation inside the gate. And suddenly someone started to come out of it. Angela's appearance caused jubilation among those who met her. Deep joy was expressed at her safe return from the dungeon. A guy tried to kiss her. The unexpected presence of the Asian hunter raised questions about his origins. And yet the military man had almost kissed him. And now he was backing away from the protagonist. Kwok Pilsen was again disoriented by the location of the exit from the dungeon. The military man immediately drew his gun and sharply demanded an explanation from the unknown persons. He was shocked by the sudden appearance of the Asian hunter. There was a question about Angela's fate and the connection to the arrival. The soldier showed his uniform, demanding a report on Angela's group. Kwok Pilsen denounced the unwarranted pointing of a weapon at himself. Hunter reacted in rage at his actions. One more step and he would shoot him. After warning him to be ready to fire, GH looked at the soldier. Immediately, a girl appeared and stopped the soldier's attack, causing him to become outraged. The discovery of Angela was a joyous event and was accompanied by a request for reinforcements to apprehend her. Angela yelled to Ivan, but he didn't react. In his head, he planned a quick apprehension with Angela's help. There was confidence in the rapid neutralization of the suspicious person, but the girl immediately snapped at the soldier and cuffed his hands. The guy didn't realize what she was doing, But Angela sharply stopped Ivan's actions, ordering him to lower his weapon. The soldier was shocked by such an order. She apologized for the fellow soldier's rudeness, explaining his consternation. Angela asked for an understanding of the reaction to the sudden appearance. She dismissed speculation about the intent of physical violence. The guy explained that the plan had only been to teach a lesson in courtesy. The soldier looked at what was going on around him. A hand had fallen in front of his face, and now he picked up his gun. Quack Pilson doubted the effectiveness of the gun against an experienced hunter, and broke it with one hand. This gun. Quack Pilson criticized the reckless behavior of the commander in front of his subordinates. He emphasized that a reckless leader endangers the entire team. The soldiers were confused, not understanding the meaning of his words in Korean. One of them suggested it was a warning of possible destruction. The location was clarified, a Russian military base. GH sat silent in the interrogation room. Quack Pilson expressed impatience with the long wait for verification. He noted that the wait had already dragged on for an hour. But suddenly the door opened and a man stood in them. His eyes were completely blank. It was a huge bald man, a killing machine. He looked at the GH condescendingly. Quack noted the stern look of their Russian officer. There was a direct question about the guest's Korean ancestry. Quack asked about the officer's Korean language skills. The man steadied himself against the table and turned to the protagonist with a dead stare. Unexpectedly asked a question about his love for music idols. The guy was shocked. The translator confessed to being a fan of the groups Hot Pink and SPEC. He recounted a decade-long interest in Korea through YouTube. The major took umbrage at the lieutenant's unprofessional behavior. The lieutenant apologized to Major Romanov for the prank. The major apologized for the delay, explaining the search for an interpreter. Lieutenant Gorbachev was introduced as the official interpreter. Gorbachev asked to be called Serge for informal communication. Major Ivan Romanov then introduced himself. Quack Pilson introduced himself as a hunter from South Korea. The major recorded the name for further protocol. The major demanded an explanation of the events in the dungeon from Angela. He expressed bewilderment at the team's defense of the unknown hunter. Angela began to explain the unexpected power of the monsters in the dungeon. She revealed that Quack Pilson had helped them. Before her eyes, he defeated the boss with a single blow. Noted the neutral-friendly attitude of the hunter. Suggested avoiding provocation until the identity of the guest is clarified. The major understood, and in the interrogation room went straight to direct questions without preamble. A key question about illegal border crossing by an armed Korean hunter was asked. Added the lack of record of Quack Pilson's entry into the country. Pointed out numerous suspicious circumstances. Warned of the possible international implications of the incident. The major activated his interrogation skills. Quack Pilson looked at the major and was not impressed with his capabilities, and immediately turned the conversation around, asking Ivan about the location of the base. The major aggressively demanded answers to his questions first. The hunter claimed ignorance of his reasons for coming to this country. He explained getting into the dungeon after some incident. The major said he would not believe this nonsense. Quack Pilson emphasized the truthfulness of the explanation, regardless of belief. He persisted in repeating the question about the geographical location of the base. The major looked at him and gave up on the bottom line. The major identified the area as the 8th container of the former RF. The guy was shocked. The guy was baffled. He was actually in Russia, that far away? The fact that the Russian president was killed by monsters at the first gate is revealed. Described the consequences, uncontrolled spread of dungeons on the territory. Major described the military's attempts to regain the country's lost territories. He explained the need for tight control because of the unstable situation. The boy sat in shock. Immediately, Angela interrupted the meeting with an urgent message about a serious problem. Ivan reacted instantly to his subordinate's anxious tone. She said it was terrible. Snow was falling outside. The military men were shocked at what they saw in front of them. In front of them was a huge elephant. No, not even an elephant, a mammoth. The whole city was in chaos. The soldiers reported that the monsters were critically overpowered, and that it was impossible to hold the defenses for long. The major looked ahead and saw the strange beast destroying his army. It was ready to swallow the major. It opened its mouth, and even the major himself was already reconciled. Suddenly, someone jumped on the monster and cut its neck. The monster fell dead, and the major looked at his savior. He saw a bearded man in front of him. General Gurov personally checked the condition of the soldiers on the front lines. The military recognized the arriving S-rank, a hero of the Russian Federation. General Gurov's status as a national hero and top-class hunter was confirmed. Announced the imminent arrival of reinforcements from the Special Threat Suppression Unit. Orders have been given to hold the lines at all costs until help arrives. The general forbade retreat, reminding them to protect their families on the home front. And everyone agreed to fight the monsters to the death. And the general himself had a very focused look. The scene changed. Angela gave the headquarters the data about the monster horde advancing westward. She said that if they didn't stop them, something terrible would happen. Breaking through the defenses would pose a direct threat to civilians. The 100,000-strong city of Sarograd would be under attack. The major watched and thought about this information, and then called Lieutenant Gorbachev for an emergency assignment. Orders had been given to gather all the hunters and soldiers of the base to defend the city. The lieutenant requested instructions regarding the Korean hunter. The general ordered Angela to stay behind to monitor Kwok Pilsen. Angela resented the decision to leave her in the rear during the battle. The general confirmed the order as binding. She had no choice. Now she would stay here and keep an eye on the man, and started to leave, calling Gorbachev after him. Gorbachev quickly scampered after him. Angela was greatly displeased. As the two higher-ups walked down the corridor, Ivan confessed his fear for Angela's life during the operations. Therefore, she must stay. She accused him of deliberately pulling out of missions because of his anxiety. This embarrassed her a little. Feeling useless as a soldier made her feel inferior. She apologized for the selfishness of her words to Ivan. Kwok Pilsen watched the show and then recorded the unexpected conflict between the military. He inquired about the cause of the quarrel, addressing Angela. Angela apologized for the inappropriate scene to the hunter. Kwok Pilsen stated his lack of understanding of the situation but intervened. He advised against resigning to unclear orders for the sake of personal growth. The man noted the disgruntled expression on Angela's face, and she said that the guise was quite sly on the contrary. She decided to break the order, believing that sincerity would overcome the language barrier. It was discussed to bring Kwok Pilsen into the battle despite suspicions. The decision was made to trust instinct and utilize his help on the battlefield. Angela approached the hunter to ask for a favor. The soldiers were shooting magazines into the monster's carcasses. But he didn't care. He had a shell. Shouts of ceasefire temporarily halted the fighting. The commander doubted the effectiveness of his call. He took another look at the creature, which turned around and revealed its horrible face and aura. Now they were silently looking at each other. The huge monster swung its arm and slammed it on the ground near the military. And now the military man was sitting on his knees from the hard blow, and the monster was getting ready to kill the old man. One moment left and the old man's head was finished. He was ready to die. But suddenly some kind of shield appeared between the monster and the old man. There were tons of people like that. Someone was already swinging from behind and ready to kill the monster. The girl activated her technique and slashed the monster completely from head to toe. The monster roared in pain, and behind the girl, the monster's huge carcass fountained blood. And then it fell on its side. The commander realized these people are from the Special Anti-Monster Unit. The special unit arrived and inquired about the condition of the group. Ivan introduced himself as the commander of the 4th Threat Suppression Squad. He expressed his gratitude for the help and requested the general's location. The lack of precise coordinates was explained by the expansion of the front line. An emergency report was received by Major Romanov about the approach of a giant horde of monsters from the eastern direction. The soldiers panicked and requested instructions from the commander in the face of an unprecedented threat. Ivan Romanov noted the abnormality of the mass movement of heterogeneous monster species. The 30-year veteran recognized the uniqueness of the situation, which had not been encountered before. He emphasized the strangeness of mixing incompatible species of monsters in one stream. There was a suggestion of a resemblance to animals fleeing a deadly threat. The scene changed again to a snowy city. The monster continued to stand there, maw chattering. The scene switched again to a snowy landscape. The soldiers shot at the monster's belly. For a very long time, but to little avail. A critical shortage of magic stone blanks for ammunition was noted. Suggested the use of ordinary bullets instead of their magical counterparts, and immediately punished for such thoughts. Explained the ineffectiveness of simple bullets against high-level monsters. A soldier pointed out a group of hunters in a combat zone. Questioned the nature of the hunter's combat abilities. Partially recognized the role of physical strength in hunters' abilities. Good theory, but a key factor was uncovered. It was because they had the energy of high-grade magical stones. The power was interesting. An alternate name for the hunters in the world was also mentioned. The epithet chosen by the gods for magic stone bearers was confirmed. The soldiers continued to fight the mammoth fight. He stepped loudly and all the soldiers scattered. The skill shackling swamp was applied against the advancing monsters. The mammoth was shocked. The ground beneath his feet glowed. Immediately, an arrow was aimed at the monster, but an unusual one, and one filled with energy that gave great fire. The monster roared with anger and pain. Reinforcement spells were requested from the support mage Sophia. 3 types of buffs were applied: weapon enhancement, defense, and health. Now the blonde was glowing from being full of strength as well, and she rushed forward, trying to kill all living things. Activated the skill rage of the berserker to increase combat performance, and used it to make a bunch of cuts, and then landed in front of a mammoth corpse. She turned around and constated the extreme difficulty of holding defensive positions. But something was wrong. More monsters were climbing towards them from the forest. Monsters have broken through the defense line. The captain reported the impossibility of holding back the endless stream of monsters. The major tensed up and clenched his teeth. He recognized the lack of resources for the long-term defense of the city. An emergency evacuation of Sarograd was considered. Suddenly, someone beside him began to growl. It was a huge monster wolf with fangs and horns. Everyone saw the captain's problem. Angela tried to help him and hit the dog just in time, even though it was very difficult. She took the hammer away from the body of the defeated monster. There was a check on the condition of the wounded Major Ivan on the front lines. Surprised by Angela's presence in the danger zone was against orders. Quack Pilson stated that the scale of the threat exceeded expectations. Ivan resented the appearance of an untested person at a strategic site. Angela insisted on prioritizing the combat mission over formalities. She agreed to follow up disciplinary action after the battle. Angela reaffirmed the soldiers' obligation to fight alongside others, warned of irreparable losses with current battle tactics, declared actual loss of control of the situation. Major proposed an emergency evacuation plan for the town to save the people. Quack Pilson condemned the very idea of surrendering in the midst of battle. He accused the commander of lacking the will to win, pointed to the unyielding determination of the fighters to continue the resistance. He pointed them forward, to the girls and boys of the military, who risked their lives for the sake of others. Angela waited for an answer too. The major also sat and thought, what should they do? Quack Pilson emphasized and ordered the soldier to remember one thought, that a battle is only lost when the commander surrenders. He urged the major to fight to the end for the sake of his subordinates. The lieutenant offered to translate the Korean hunter's words. Quack Pilson declined the services of a translator. He noted that the major already understood the essence of the appeal. The hunter announced the engagement, leaving the choice of tactics to the commander. Someone called Ivan's name. It was Angela, who confirmed her willingness to fight to the end against the odds. She called it a soldier's duty to the trusted citizens, and urged everyone to move on. The lieutenant turned to the major, who thought silently and decided to close his eyes for a second. The very next second, he stood up so that everyone could see him. In a firm voice, the major expressed his shame for showing a moment of weakness. He recognized the temporary oblivion of the principle of no time to retreat, emphasized the need to stand to the death in desperate situations, declared the decision to fight to the victorious end, defined as the military's duty to the townspeople who trusted them. The soldiers began to pick up on his admonition and loudly agreed. The commander stood to his full height among his soldiers. He addressed everyone. Everyone needed to hear him. The major raised his hand up and said, 6 that now they must fight. Everyone was alarmed. Absolutely no one expected this from the major. And only the hero looked at the whole action with satisfaction.